brothers got hands. But once you started to get a best of fives, I think AL's depth really started to come through, and Top Esports weren't able to kind of run over their... I just am still flabbergasted that Top Esports were able to win a series playing Silas jungle. That was an incredible performance from Kanavi. I miss that brother. I wish he would come back, but we'll see. We'll see how the year treats him over on HLE.
You know, fingers crossed we get to run cross paths with him as LPL teams down the line when we get towards internationals. But yeah, for now, he's doing his own thing over in Korea. We got Tien, we got Tarzan here. Still a great matchup in the jungle role. Yeah, well, it's not the worst thing. Interesting you say that about AL, though, because they really kind of like Top Esports was last year. This year, or at least in Split 1 of this year, were really the regular season team themselves, right? They ended up 8-2, first place in the regular season, going to be the favorites to return to internationals at first stand, and then they end up fumbling in the playoffs during those best of fives. You wonder if some of the coaching changes ended up becoming a factor there. True. With Tabe moving on in 2025 to 2026. But it seems like they found their groove again, and a lot of that, I think, based off of the experience that they have on this lineup as well. Some, of course, names that you can always think about when you think about the LPL, like Hope. You got Shanks, who's been here for a number of years. Tarzan, ever since, you know, moving over from Griffin. But the big name here on AL, as we've been mentioning, is Flandra. And his just experience level compared to some of the other players that we have on Top Esports is pretty incredible. We threw in Zweon here, but really comparing him to these rookies that are on this TES lineup. 1,142 games played. That's over 13 times the amount of these two rookies combined. And so when you look at the experience gap specifically around the top side of the map, but you can take into account Feng Yue as well, this is going to be a really fun thing to continue to watch and observe as we go throughout the series.
Yeah, Feng Yue is the one that actually has the most amount of these games. Obviously, for Swayon, came into Split 2 and also did play very briefly on Invictus Gaming in 2024. But aside from that, it is a staggering amount of games. And I think when we take into consideration the last series that we saw from Swayon, where him versus Zika, it felt like Zika completely bodied him in a lot of these different matchups, whether it was tanks or into more like range carries. I think the Jace game, I think, was game 1. Swayon has had, I think, a much better split outside of that series. He has been one of the best top laners, I think top 3 for sure, and it's going to come down to his consistency. We can have these really high highs, but as long as your gameplay and he can consistently bring these super flashy picks like the Lee Sin top and kind of style on your opponents, it's going to be games and series like that, like I said online, that are going to potentially make or break whether or not he's on this team for Split 3 and going forward. Because if 369 decides, I don't want a positional coach anymore, I want to play, I assume Top Esports are going to give him that spot unless Swayon basically carries this team to an international.
And I would say, like, until looking at last week's game or this week's game against Weibo, you'd probably be willing to keep Swayon around, right? I mean, he's been incredible. Like, if you are just ranking the performances so far of these top laners, Swayon is probably first, if not second best, in the LPL at this point for his play this split. Until, of course, he ran into Zika, who is, again, an experienced top laner in his own right. How will this rookie or this younger player be able to adjust, adapt, kind of be able to learn from the tough series that he had going forward into this one? We'll have to wait and see, because that is really the true marker of what it means to be a solid player in the LPL for consistent amounts of years. We see flashes from certain people throughout their early goings of things, but it's how they're able to adjust and continue to adapt to whatever meta or whatever adjustments in playstyle other players are making that really set apart the superstars from the average folk here in this league.
Yeah, I just think it's really cool because I think for Top Esports, if they had not got off to a winning streak, I think this team would definitely be a lot worse. And that's maybe a little reductive to say, but if you don't have that initial set of games to say, okay, we are a good enough team where I can trust my fairly inexperienced top laner to pick up Lee Sin top, to play Vayne into Bin, I think without that confidence and without the set of games to say, like, we can lean on you to do this and the trust that's there, I think that this team is probably in a lot different a position, maybe kind of fighting in that same spot that we see Invictus Gaming and NIP. Who knows? But whether or not Sueon continues on this roster, I think it is really exciting to see a team that, or an organization that has very much kind of ran on older talent. 2024, we had Jackie Love, Mako, Cream being the only like kind of novice player in consideration with TN and 369. And then last year, Kanavi, Jackie Love, and then we're running with a couple of different supports, and that was kind of where we were pushing our newer players. I'm wondering what they're going to be looking for in terms of
ตอนนี้เขาเริ่มโปรโมทสกินเวทแล้วดิ
it's
มาแล้วดิ
unfortunate, obviously, with what happened to Nayo, so we
บวกเวทในเรื่องใหม่
have to keep building with Fengyue and our new top laner. With these graphics, though, something tells me we are on season 2.
This could be just a kickoff. You know, it'd be nice to have some of this information ahead of time, right? To get to talk about the patch. It has been, what, 4 days or something like that?
Yeah.
3 days on the patch? We will see. We'll know sooner rather than later, as the festivities for Pandemonium in Season 2 have begun here in Xi'an. Again, a 3-day weekend down in the southern portion of China. We have, of course, the home team in WE playing tomorrow against JD Gaming, and then the 4 teams that we see here today, Top, AL, Weibo, and IG, will all flip-flop each other in some matchups to round out the day tomorrow, our last triple header of the LPL Split 2 regular season. Here's anyone's legend. Again, you mentioned with some of these teams like NIP and IG that had these starts, strong starts, beginning to flounder a little bit in the standings. They've really been able to take advantage, and right now both of these teams in positions to lock up a spot in the top 4, which again gets you a guaranteed berth into the postseason.
You were talking about the fact that we got to see kind of a revitalization of AL. This weekend is probably going to make or break a lot of the community sentiment around this team. Already taking a fairly dominant, and I say dominant, it was a little shaky that second game versus IG, but if they can take a series versus Top Esports and then beat IG again tomorrow, that's a 3-game set, and suddenly you're going maybe 6-0, 6-2 maybe? That's a convincing enough record to suddenly now put you at 7-3.
You'll take that, given how the start of the season ended up going for AL. Top Esports, on the other hand, wanting to avoid being 6-3, 7-3, and the like. If they lose this series, they will be tied in games in series score with AL, but they will still have the head-to-head advantage in terms of game score. So they will have a slight advantage over them in the standings. We see our captains in the middle of our stage, fist bumping before we head back, getting ready for draft of game number 1. I will say, remember the graphic that we just showed of Fengyue and Leon? Lore accurate in terms of the size of those guys here on the walkouts. But it always surprises me how tall Fengyue is. That guy.
อย่าพลาดนะเอลไม่ใช่เอลอย่าพลาดนะครับท็อปคนนี้ ขอเลยไม่งั้นมันแซงนะ ไม่จะโดนแซงเอาหน่าห้ามพลาดนะครับ
He should have been going to say hi when Harden and everybody kind of came over and they do their trips over to China. They're like, who's this? Get him over here. Let's run some drills. Let's run some drills with Fengyue.
The most Giga Chad player in the LPL, locking Lulu Seraphine every game. So
he is, by the way, I think a huge sweetheart. We have gotten a ton of interviews, both post-game and some individual ones, and every time he's like a gentle giant is kind of the way that I would describe him. He kind of comes off as kind of aloof a little bit, but Jackie Love, he noted in an interview that when Jackie Love gives him critique, he's just like, hey, that was really bad. Like, you should not have done this, and, like, here's how we could do this. And he's like, yes, I want to learn. And that's a really important kind of mindset to have, especially for such a legendary player, not just in his role, but across the league, to be able to learn from that kind of player.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very different situation just a split ago. You had Jachi down there, you had Nayo in the jungle, so having those 2 positions be replaced by players with such high pedigree, these world champions in Jackie Love and TN, certainly is a great time for a player like Fengyue down there in the support position, ready to absorb all of this information and try to take his game to the next level. We've been kind of waiting to see this guy in Tier 1 for a number of splits at this point, just based off of how he's been playing whenever he got it on the big team, whether it was like in a Demacia Cup or just his play in the LDL. And it was a bit of a shaky start in Split 1, I think that is fair to say. But going into this split, a lot of the wins are coming through the bottom lane. Jackie Love and Fengyue have found something and found some sort of rhythm they're playing a lot of dominant lanes. They're playing a lot of enchanters alongside these hyper carries, and that has been a strategy that has worked for top esports so far. We'll see if we are on the new patch how that affects the rest of the meta here. But we'll take a look now as we get ready for picks and bans.
I see new draft graphics. Something is telling me we are on season 2 of League, which is going to change a lot of the prep that some of our casters have, and a lot of the ways we're going to talk about this season. We'll have to wait.
อีก2ตัวปกตินะรัมโบกับวอลลัสแต่ AL ก็แบนตามเมตาครับตรงนี้โอเรน่าแล้วก็แอสออก
see what their priority is going to be. Right now,
ตัว J4 โอเค
Pantheon immediately TN's most played in this split, and I think probably the most dangerous jungle to be giving over. But Karma also is, I think, probably the premier support.
Yeah, number of things you can go alongside this pick. Ooh, look at the full screen.
What? We got a full screen of that?
Very cool. I was going to say the Ezreal would make a lot of sense alongside it, but it's going to be taken away by Hope instead. Get paired alongside the Pantheon here for Tarzan. Some point and click CC. Very helpful in the jungle and also one of TN's most played in his return to gameplay.
ท็อปมันแย่งคาม่าดิตอนนี้เอาคู่เป็นเป็นเอสเรียวกับแพนิออนนะครับอย่างนี้ก็กดจินมั้ยท็อปง่ายๆแค่กดจินเอาอันนี้ก่อนเหรอโอเค
breaking up the Ezreal Karma
ไม่รีบเอาอันนี้ก่อน
but I need to see a little bit more. This is a rather flexible one
แค่นี้จินปะ
from AL.
ผมว่า
It does give them different options that they
เอาเคทลินเลยเหรอ
move into. Top esports though, if this is a
คาม่าเคทลินก็ไม่แย่เลนแข็ง
that sounds like a lane I
ผมชอบจินมากกว่าว่ะตอนนี้คือต้องเล่นไวมากครับท็อป
push to shove to harass
สวัสดีคุณเซรีด้วยครับสวัสดี
you have these two champions on your side
โอเคเอาเฉานี่ก็ไม่แย่
getting that champion
ค่อยเลือก ADC อีกทีนึง
in the Karma certainly makes a lot of sense for TN hopefully turn him into a bit of a hyper carry
เปิดอะไรดีเอากลางเป็นไลท์
always a great mid jungle
ว่าไลท์หลุดนี่หว่า
so Xin Zhao with Karma Annie. This might be a game where
he
actually gets to completely smurf. I mean, you have so much setup now. Didn't opt for the Caitlyn, and now there will be probably a lot more focus towards the bot lane. For top esports, I think the focus now is making sure that Zweon gets a favorable matchup. It is likely that he is going to have to blind, considering AL are going to be going for, they will have counter pick at the end of the day. And so, thinking of things that you would probably want to set up, I do think Corki starts to kind of come into focus. Corki and Karma can definitely be a very dangerous duo. And right now for AL, it is about playing the map very wide, which I think with a Ryze and a Pantheon, that makes me a little bit worried for a player like Cream.
Still a lot of options on the table. Banning away the Anivia, not just against Shanks, but also something that Flandra in the top lane could whip out. Our producer Ilya said that he's also been spamming the Anivia in solo queue in the top lane. So we talked about how flexible this guy is, how much experience he has on all these different champions. Another wrinkle put into the system here as bot lanes will be targeted.
เราต้องแบนเลยเห็นอยากกดเคทลินแบนเคทลินเลย
Could work alongside this Karma as well.
เคทลินซิลเวอร์โอเคแต่ซิลเวอร์เล่นกับคาม่าเขานั่งคุ้ม
To me does scream
นี้ดูเกมดีเจอ ATB เหรอมีแข่งด้วยเหรอวันนี้ไหนดูสิโอเคแบนเป็นโยริกนะครับกับทางด้านของนก
can be good but might be a little less playable when you're going into things like
อันนี้ฮาละ
Rise
กูไม่ใช่ละอันนี้ฮาละ
2 and 3 items with that completed Rod of Ages and Seraphs
เซราฟีนสาระอยู่นะเซราฟีนการเล่นมาที่ได้ไฮอยู่
but the Seraphine is, and so we're going to see Kyle pick that one up. Certainly, a strong champion in its own right.
โอเคเซราฟีนแล้วก็กดจินครับท็อป
If we are on the new path,
ก็ดีสุดแล้วผมว่า
a lot of poke damage there in that bottom lane.
แล้วให้จูหลานเล่นตัวแบกๆเหรอ
Now I'm just like I feel like I've been hoodwinked at the last moment because the game has changed rather radically. We had like role quest changes. There's new item interactions. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves.
เดี๋ยวเจ็ดก่อนได้หมดเลย
Still ends up being 26-8.
ทำไมก็กดคู่อยู่ดีป่ะเจ็ด
blind into Rise Pantheon. I am worried, Graves. I wanted to see what it was going to be like a comfortable for Swayon, but with the team comp that top esports are going for, it seems like they want to match
ท็อปตัวช่วยแบกกันแล้วก็เอาไอ้นี่ดีกว่าแคลรี่ยูทิวมาเอาเล่นใส่ออนปกตินะเนี้ย
much more ahead here, and the ability to attack side lanes versus adjacent and
classic front to back ใน AL
free pickings for anyone's legend.
ส่วนท็อปนี่แบบดาร์มันนี่โคตรไวเลยเห็นแล้วที่ฮันที่แปะในนี้แต่ไม่รู้ว่าวันนี้มีแข่งไง
with the Seraphine buffing up the entirety of this front line and just having two
ยังไงก็ดูไม่ได้อยู่ดีอะไม่เป็นไร
with Shanks and Hope. We'll have to wait and see. Top Esports are going to have to play a little bit unconventional in this one. They'll have to look for picks. They'll have to look for, hard CC from miles away with the deadly flourishes and the anti-stuns and the like. And working around the side lanes as well as Weyon had a good time, I should say, against Zika's last series against Weibo. But it's also his most played champion in the split, 4-0 on it this season.
Please be the new patch, because if it is, then Jace top versus Sion is significantly more playable. Storm Raider Surge, Deathfire Touch, I'm begging you. LPL, let's bring part of the future into the fold. We're 4 days after the patch, whatever, just bring me new patch stuff. Yeah, AL, I'm looking at this and it's just like, if they don't get any of the first dragons, I think you're still happy. Your 2 and 3 item power spike with Ezreal Rise just sounds way too broken. And Top Esports, I think their damage is a bit front-loaded. Like, you'll have some burst with Annie and Jhin if the eventual late game fantasy. I'm a bit worried though. I think it's all mistimed and maybe not all together.
These two teams were facing off in the LPL finals a little over a year ago. Now they're in a battle for positioning in the top 4 of Split 2 in 2026.
โอ้โหทำไมมันเท่จังวะ
First of 3 straight
ฉาก
days
เข้าโอเคครับมา
Xian is underway as game number 1 begins.
โอ้โหโอ้โห
All right, we saw it in the bottom left. Thank you to our producer. 26-8.
Phase rush.
Yep. Phase rush, yeah, is in the game. We did see this yesterday, and because of the new patch, Doran's item.
เล่นล่างนี่สบายๆเลยจินคาม่านี่โคตรขี้โกงฮีโร่คู่นี้เก่งมากนะเล่นล่างไหวแล้วโดนแย่งไอ้เลี้ยวไปก็ไม่เป็นไรตัวเล่นบนฟ้าอย่างเดียวครับก็เป็นเจสอะกดดันนะตีแรงช่วงต้นเกมโอ้โหกลางทรีมเอาหนักเลยปัญหาเยอะพอสมควรนะครับไลฟ์ช่วงแรกเดี๋ยวรอกลับบ้านซื้อผ้าคลุมกันเวทอันหนึ่งก็ยืนสบายแล้ว
The same old stuff as we've seen. Wonder if that just means the rest of the weekend is going to be like that as well, because again, this is a 3-day event to kick off Season 2 in Xi'an. Only time will tell. I know some of the other Tier 1 leagues are going over to this new patch this weekend. We'll see if the LPL does end up following as Tien's going for some early shenanigans here in the mid lane. Clears his top side. Now we'll look for Shanks, who has the wave pushing into him, so likely will not be in any severe danger unless Cream burns a summoner spell or 2. Shanks immediately pops the ghost, and that's all Tien's going to get.
เมื่อกี้ต้องแฟดตันเลยอะแต่ว่านั่นแหละชังเขากดวิ่งไปแล้ว
Cool piece of tech you can do is if the disintegrate Q is mid-air, if you use one of your spells before it hits the target, you can actually make it stun, and so you can kind of bait out your opponent. Great respect, I think, being shown by Shanks to not give over his life, only loses his ghost as well. Could have maybe been an invade angle, but instead Tien not going to lose too much time. However, Pantheon's already done with his 6 camps, and Tien's just now starting his 5th, so that's going to be an immediate grub or immediate scuttle crab at the top. And I think Swayon needs to be careful, because this wave does not look like it is coming back to him.
This is some of the fear of playing a carry top laner into such a legendary weak side player like Flandre. He knows how to manipulate these matchups to the smallest of degrees to his own advantage. We've sometimes seen Jaces just be able to poke out Scions early in the game and turn that into laning phase advantages. That is not what has happened up here, as Flandre's 1,000+ games in the LPL seem to be paying off so far.
อุ้ยโดนบ้างวะเนี่ยโอเคครับวิ่งไวครับครีม
just run away, and they know Pantheon is here, not just from the site, but went for.
Cream's trying to bait. So Tarzan is here, so Tien
โหเถียน
becomes lightning, but Tarzan's gonna flash himself.
ทาซานแฟดโดนตันตี
gonna
ตี
still have a lot of
โอ้โห
stacks
เทรดสอง
available.
เทียน
But Shanks will fall them all the
โอ้โหแม่งไม่
same.
ตาย
It is still TN ending up taking down Tarzan and first
โอ้
blood
เทียน
will go to top
เทียนมันจะเอา2เลยเดี๋ยวนี้
25 HP is what I saw in
โอ้
that
โหอัน
rise.
นี้
If that's a
เล่น
double
อัจฉริ
kill,
ยะเลยนะ
the
ช็อตนี้
early game is just done.
ใช้ได้ใช้
They're
ได้
already up 1,000 gold thanks to that play, and Cream gets to shove this wave underneath the turret. Good play coming in, but very tricky.
เกือบได้นะเมื่อกี้ดาเมจมันขาดไปติ๊กนึง
Very handily if they had not been able to grab that kill. Tarzan overextends, not able to find that either. And
โอ้โห
all of the worry that I
ที
had
ม
about
เหี่ยวเพจจะไม่ได้กลับบ้านเอานะครับเนี่ย
top side or trying to abuse
โอ้
one
ได้
of
ว่ะ
these lower range matchups ends up not working for them.
โหเรายั่วสุดเลยคิม
I mean, Tarzan knows.
โอ้เพย์นี้ถ้าโดนนี่ตายไปแล้วนะ
Still goes for the play. Watch the way that his stacks end up working out. He dies with all 5 of the
โอ้
passive.
โหแล้วมันแทงคุ้มจัดเลยดิ
Got an empowered spell out.
Oh yeah, no, there it is. There he doesn't kill TN there. That is
โอ้โห
crazy. And
มันนิด
Shanks
เดียว
still
เอง
with
อะ
20 HP. That's a nail biter, right?
เออ
Because
เลื่อนเหลือ
if you
20 เอง
get 2 kills over to an early Zinzao, it's not going to be a complete
โอ้โห
item,
นำพัน
but he
นึง
already
ละ
has the tunneler. And
ท็อป
look at it, Tarzan's inventory. He's got basics.
เล่นผ่านหมดนะครับตามปกตินะก็ดาวก็แข่งเลนกว่าพอสมควรอะ
Developed here for Top Esports.
ดาวไม่เอามันแบบกึ่งจะไปเลดเกมนิดนึง
To Weibo Gaming a few days ago. A lot of that came
ไลท์ตรงกลางเนี่ย
in
แบ
the
บ
early
ต้อง
game.
ยอม
Weibo
ๆหน่อย
has actually been one of the best early game teams
Oh,
that
he's on
we've seen in the
vision.
league. Now Top Esports looking to try
โอ้
to
โหตายเลยดิ
replicate some of that here
โอ้ไม่ได้
against
ไม่มี
AL
ตัน
as Shanks is going to be able to get away for the moment with his phase rush, but one more win becomes lightning from TN.
โอ้โห
Should be able
โอ
to
เค
finish
ตาย
it
เล
off.
ย
He dashes forward the audacious charge and picks up kill number
พี่
2
เทียน
for
แม่งกด
TES.
กลางไม่หยุดเลย
And
พี่จ๋า
TN gets to do that because they spot Tarzan out. Great job
อ๋อ
from our observer
เห็น
showing
ว่า
this.
ทาซานแอบไป
They
ขโมย
knew
ไก่
that Tarzan is not crossing over into the river. If they don't know, maybe TN pulls back instead. Is able to grab that, and now because they see Tarzan, that's a dragon as well. This is a 2,000 gold lead at 6 minutes, and this is the Top Esports that has been running the
พี่เทียน
lead
กู
just
ทำโค
from
ต
an
รเยอะ
early
เกม
game
นี้
perspective.
Yeah, TS did not have this level of early game power against Weibo just a few days ago, but
Come
looks
on,
like
man.
now the narrative is starting to shift. This is, again, seemingly a good matchup for Top Esports over the last couple of years. And immediately after losing at the start of split number 2 here, guess who they played to begin that 12-game win streak? It was against AL. They won 2-0.
It was the donation from AL. Thank you for our win after getting destroyed by IG, and then they were able to bounce back. So very important, and that kind of comes down, going to, at least for this match, going to decide what these two teams look like in top 4. And when I look at the strengths of these two teams, for AL it has been mid-jungle. Similarly here for Top Esports, I do think that TN and Cream have been a very deadly 2v2.
ช่างเลือดไป
And then I just look across the lanes, who would I give the advantage
โอ้
to?
แชงมันไม่ออกกัดเวทด้วยป่ะ
Better games across
โอ้โห
the
แล้ว
board.
เราดูน้องมันท
Top side, it looks like Zoyan.
ำจุหลานน้องเบาๆครับ
Relatively even.
ทำเยอะไปนะทำเยอะไปนะเดียวแพนดิออนอยู่ล่าง
Very aggressive. He knows that with the Warden's
ฟังดีแม่งแกสซีฟใส่เฉยแบบแพนดิออนไม่อยู่แล้วแต่แกสซีฟใส่แบบว่าเหมือนแบบหลอกๆอะว่าแพนมันอยู่นะโอ้โหแล้วน้องจุหลานบอกกูไม่ปล่อยแล้ว
He's feeling aggressive here in this lane. The Soul Furnace proc does not have the damage issued. And that means that Flanger will not have kill threat and is out of mana as the
โอ้โหบนมันบวกกันนัวจัดเลยอะ
I don't know if we will get a replay of this. Here's an Ezreal ult. I mean, Sway, I'm
ไม่โดน
sorry,
นะอันเนี้ย
this is not going to hit anybody. That was very tight timings. I mean, he has the adaptive
ช่วย
force
ช่วยดัน
potion, so
ใน
he
นี้
has
ช่วยดัน
more
คีปช่วยดัน
damage.
คีป
He's going to swap into melee form, and then he uses the hammer swing to actually stop Flandra from being able to move forward. Flandra tries to cancel it using his ultimate, ends up getting a
หัว
little
ตี
bit
เลย
of
อ่ะ
shit, but isn't able to force out the flash, which I think is so
โอ้โห
important.
แม่น
Now with Tarzan
แม่นครับ
having
โอ้โห
ultimate,
ไม่
this
โด
is
นนัด
something
หนึ่ง
that
โอ
they
เค
could have revisited if they were
แต่
able to
ได้
grab that
บาเรียโฮป
summoner
นะ
spell.
โอเค
So
คุ้ม
it doesn't turn
คุ้ม
into
ค่า
anything. It's just another thing that I
เฮ้ยอ้าว
Oh, Funguwave was backing on a ward. It's going to go down to Kyle because of it. Nicely
Excellent
done by the
BP.
AL 2v2, utilizing their poke.
โอ้แล้วเวลาจะกินเลิฟบอกมาดิ2-1 ไม่ติด 2-1 ไม่ติดนะ ไหวชิวไหวชิว
Completely happy with how things are going down here as AL get right into the driver's seat, back on the board in terms of kills.
Any AL fan is currently thanking me in chat, as they should, for the caster curse, saying that Jackie Love and Funguwave are better 2v2. There you go, giving over a kill to Kyle. I did just notice Hope got no assist for that, by the way. So that was just a support solo kill being set up there. Good job from Kyle. It is a fairly large investment, but getting the cleanse out from Jackie Love is something that, again, with Tarzan and with Shanks, could be something that they could look forward to try to punish. Grub's going over to AL. mostly is, I think, going to be something that is a takeaway from top esports, but definitely if we're talking about side lanes and later on in the game trying to farm plates, it is something that AL could look to try to generate a little bit of economy.
Yeah, that's a very important sequence there for anyone's legend who had a lot of things go against them in the first 5 minutes or so. They end up living that on the top side of the map with Flandre. They get all 3 grubs, and then they get a kill into the hands of their Seraphine. Maybe this is the signal for the momentum to start to
โอ้แล้ว
shift.
มีวอร์ดเลย
Still top esports with the 1,000 gold lead. TN hovering
พี่เทียน
around
บอก
the
กู
top
ไป
side
ละ
spot on reward. We'll head right
แกงไม่ได้
back
ก็ไป
to
ดี
the
กว่า
Strokes and continue to farm up.
I wonder if this kind of sounds the alarms for Tarzan to look for something. If there was ever a moment you say,
โอ้
okay,
ตอนนี้แพนดิออนน่าจะซึมเศร้าเลยเป็นแพนดิออนเนี่ยต้นเกมเดินทำอะไรไม่ได้
and
เล
I
ย
look at the inventories, and stupid caster just
หน้าไปเล่น
decided
ล่าง
to say, hey, maybe we should challenge the Zinzao who already has a Sundered Sky pre 9 minutes. Never mind, we're not doing that. We're walking away from that play right now.
Oh.
Tons of vision from top esports, by the way.
หวานเต็
They
ม
know
ป่าเลย
exactly
ครับ
what Tarzan is, and this has been, I think,
แม่งวอร์ดแคมป์ละหนึ่ง
biggest
อ่ะ
way
คือแบบ
for
เห็น
teams to
แน่
punish
ๆมายัง
AL is just get vision, track the enemy jungle. Tarzan is such a large part of this team's success.
ข้างบน
that
อยู่
time
ยืน
and
ไม่
time
ได้
again
นะ
end up
จุหลาน
giving them some pretty big wins if you're able to take away the leader
โหฟังเดย์มันออกแบบ
vocal one that is leading
กันดาเมจกายภาพมาดิ
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this
ไอ้เกราะ
split be
เกราะ
such a
กัน
jungle
กันตีปกติอะ
focused
แล้วก็
meta,
ไอ้นี่
specifically around the invades that happen in
อ
the
อก
early game.
รองเท้าอีก
The
ออกท่า
plays
บีมา
that are made across the map in those first 5 minutes.
ก็คือแบบ
Game
ไม่กะ
TN
ตายอะ
who ended
ตอนนี้
up
คือไม่
taking
กะตายอะ
advantage
ไซ
of
ออน
both in the mid lane. So, with that all being said, Tarzan now is going to be on the back foot for the remainder of this game. And the good thing about that is that he is a Pantheon. He has still
True.
that global, that point and click CC. That's not going to change. It's just how much more is he going to be able to provide, especially with now being down a little bit in terms of just the tempo and the itemization. And the vision game is starting to work against him as well.
Thankfully for Tarzan, Zinzao's kit does not have flat armor penetration on it. Just put in the kit in the ultimate. So that is something that does go in his favor. But aside from that, Tien has 2 kills. Sway on. There is technically a Pantheon who could come here if
โห
they...
ยืนแบบนิ่งๆนานๆเลย
Yeah.
จุหลาน
It's the second dragon going over to top esports.
ท็อปได้มังกรนะโอเค
It really is top side of the map that AL is
แปลก
focusing a lot of their resources
ๆอย่างนี้ก็
on.
คุ้มละ
Down in the bottom lane, top esports, despite losing Fungyue off of that strange play, to say the least.
Here we go.
For Kyle, end up getting that second dragon. Here's the response though.
อุ้ย
And AL will look to
ได้
take
ป้อ
down
ม
Sway on
อุ้ย
here.
แฟด
The flash underneath his
อุ้
own
ยแต่แฟด
turret
ส
is
วยนะ
not going to result in too much.
แฟดโอ้โห
Will
โอ้โห
actually lead to
โอ้
the
โห
survival
แล้ว
for
ออก
the
GPS
moment,
เลย
but
ดิ
the snipe at the Comet Spear from downtown will give Tarzan his first kill of the game. Now in the
โห
mid
ได้
lane,
เหมือนกันตรง
TN
กลาง
and the rest of TES looking to make
โห
a
แต่ไม่ได้
response
นะ
on the Shanks and
ไม่ได้
Kyle.
ไม่ได้
Shields have been burned, tower plates
ไป
have
แล้ว
been
จ้า
shed, but no blood ends up being drawn.
Wow, and that was a clutch flash from
เฮ้ย
Shank.
เกมยัง
Gets hit
แบบ
with
เสมอ
that
เสมอ
Timbers,
กันอยู่
and maybe this whole play
1,000แต่ 1,000ไม่ได้เยอะนะต้นเกมท็อปถ้าพลาดอีกรอบหนึ่งก็น่าจะเงินเท่าละ
as well. Noticing some of the itemization coming on through, it is a completed Star Razor for this Jin and a Serpent's Fang to start here for Swayon. So won't have maybe the burst or the shielding that something like an Eclipse might give him, but taking away the Soul Furnace that, I mean, Scion already 600 gold up and was able to get some plates thanks to those grubs and that kill. I think AL, despite being down 2 dragons, are not too displeased with the position they find themselves in this game. Just I'm looking at the item completions, and it's rather expensive before we start to see anyone's legend really start to come online.
Certainly gonna take some time, but you're starting to see these little things. Tarzan getting back in the kill column is always going to be a good thing, and they're going to add to that here. Nicely
คอมโบ
timed
คอมจอยเฟย
ultimate
ยู
from
กู
Flandre is going to
แย่
get
แล้ววะ
Tarzan kill number 2, and all of a sudden you look at that gold that was
แต่
so
เลด
much
เกม
in
ไม่มี
TN's
ใคร
favor.
ฆ่า
Also,
ไซออน
Tarzan
เอานะ
did a great job of getting back
มันจะ
into
ไม่มี
this
ดาเมจ
game.
เอาเด้อ
This has been a hallmark of some of top esports games. I go back to the very first series of the split where Funyue was constantly getting caught, whether it was in transition or kind of just being away from Jackie Love and setting both him and his lane partner behind. Now it's 2 deaths back to back where I do think that top esports are losing a lot of pressure. Thankfully for them, the fact that they have already set themselves up with 2 dragons, it is a Chemtech Soul as well. It gives them some breathing room, but I'm just worried, especially now that we're going to be walking into a Herald that they haven't really been able to set up. Currently, Fungyue is getting vision on the top side, but look at where AL's wards are right now. They're all littered across the top side of the map and all in favor for them to be able to pick up someone like this Annie who's going to have to overextend. Look, Shanks is even prepping an ultimate.
There's the Realm Warp, going to send 2 members up to the top side for AL. Rune Prison not landing just yet, but Kyle is right here as well. True Shot Barrage, oh, they're setting the whole cavalry.
แม่งโดนไม่หยุดเลยว่ะแย่ละท็อป
She is just dead.
เริ่มรั่วแล้ว
Anyone's Legend with a brilliant mid game to get themselves right back to even in the gold graph.
It's so important for this team to get gold because they generate so much value the faster you're able to complete your items. Rod of Ages, Seraphs complete, Archangels, as well as the Muramana here for Hope. So all of these things kind of compound into a really big problem for top esports where they wanted to beat the buzzer. They want to be able to kind of beat the time trials before AL becomes
โอ้ยAL แม่งนำแล้วครับ
essentially unkillable.
แย่นะแต่ท็อปนี่คือแย่นะ
We'll see how that ends
ดาเมจมันมีชุดเดียวอ่ะในไฟไม่ต้องบอกว่าแบบมันเบิร์ดแล้วมันต้องตายไปเลยอ่ะก่อนหน้านั้นคือแบบรอจินรอไอ้เจสโป๊กไปเรื่อยๆโอ้เจสน้องชายพี่ทำไอ้นี่ได้เหรอเซอร์เพนได้เหรอชิ้นแรกทำเซอร์เพนได้เหรอ
A lot about poke and zoning around neutral objectives and
โอ้แจ็คเลิฟขอร้องพี่ชาย
These guys aren't going to care about
เล่นเบลวิ่งว่ะ
They're getting ahead,
Storm Laser ชิ้น2ยูมูอะไรเงี้ย
Scion up in the front line. You have Tarzan who's able to throw out the Aegis to negate a lot of this long range damage as well. And even if anyone does get hit, you have a Seraphine here in Kyle able to regenerate a lot of that HP. So AL's composition in the 5v5 is going to work really nicely against what top esports have to offer. As I say that, TES
ไม่ค่อยสวยเลยว่ะท็อป
push the tempo a little bit here as they go towards the Mist Herald.
โอ้ได้โอเคโอ้โหแฟด
by TN and there's a big
sám
onslaught
มันติ
onto
แจ็คกี้เลิฟ
Jackie Love, but the Jin is just a bit
ไม่ได้เล่นนะแจ็คกี้เลิฟ
already without their 80 carry.
ทีมจะตายเหมือนกัน
Pop by TN and top esports still looking for the fight.
โอ้แล้ว
Gets hit up by
ยัง
the
ได้
wait a
โอ้
minute,
โห
Wayon
เทิร์น
with
ไฟ
a
ช็อต
huge
นี้
to
โอ้
the
โห
skies and Shanks gets burned down
ตั้ง
alongside
ครีม
Tarzan. 2 kills right back for top and Wayon isn't just done just yet. The ward and the accelerator shot is going to give the Jace a double kill and this is exactly the fight they were looking for. An ace and the Herald for TES.
โอ้โหไม่ต้องมีแจ็คกี้เลิฟก็ได้นี่หว่าในไฟอะทั้งเงี้ย
Here is going to be massive. Not only is it 2,000 gold, they were up 500 for AL. They need to recall immediately, and are they going to have time to get set up for this
5 เทรด
dragon?
1โคตรคุ้ม
I
ช็อต
was
เนี้ย
looking at that top play saying, okay, AL, you got gold. If you kind of reset in time, you can play for the Herald, but maybe I misunderstood where they were going to be able to do anything.
3มันตีลงแจ็คกี้เลิฟเหลือจะเชื่อ
They trade places. Cream. He walks to the other side of this play, and they trade 80 carries.
3มันตีแจ็คกี้เลิฟ
TN and
แล้วหมดแล้ว
Swayon
ไง
go straight onto Hope
หมดปุ่ม
and Kyle.
จ่ายใส่แจ็คกี้เลิฟ
They're
หมด
taken out,
ปุ่ม
and TN is unkillable here in this fight now. He's popped his Crescent Guard, and
โอ้โหแล้ว
Shanks
เทิร์น
and
ไฟ
Tarzan aren't able to do very much in this play again.
หลอกทีมตัน2โอเคก็สวยอยู่ดีนะช็อตเนี้ยโอ้แล้วเรียวไม่จ่ายดาเมจไม่ได้มันติดเหมียนนี่ไม่ก็เอ็ดเรียวคือบอกว่าตัวละครนี่มันแบบเกลียดทุกอย่างที่มียูนิตเยอะๆนะแล้วพังป้อมคืนนะครับ
and they even get the mid tier 1 before they even use the charge of this objective. Top esports have completely brought themselves back here in this game.
We're saying the time is ticking for the scaling to begin to
ป้อม2ครึ่งหลอดอันนี้กูจวดอยู่
certainly were aware of that and they decided to go for this fight. Speaking of fighting, that's exactly what TN is going to be doing in the enemy jungle as well as Flandra is just getting burned down by the might of this Xin. First tower is secured by anyone's legend, or even though the mid-tier 1 was eventually taken down. But Top Esports doesn't really care about all that because they now have 3 Drakes at 17 minutes. That's a big win condition for this team.
And you look at right now, AL are saying, okay, let's try to go top side. Let's take at least, maybe a Raptor camp. Let's see if we can go towards the lane. But the wave isn't in a very good spot. And now AL, they went into mid. They got that turret. They went into bot side. Swayon's going to try to squeeze a couple more turret plates. Here's a Pantheon ult, but TN's here.
โอ้พี่เทียน โอ้จูหลานตายครับอุ้ยแต่แฟดสวยโอ้โหตายอยู่ดีโดนแฟดผมต้องแฟดแล้วแจ็คกี้เลิฟเปิดประตูมาเลย
TN now on the retreat will go towards his Gromp with the audacious charge just to try to close the gap is Tarzan.
สู้ต่อไม่ได้นะ
Still in the wings,
พี่เทียน
waiting to re-engage. Blast cone over, but I don't know if Shanks realized that the TS bot lane is here to party as well. Crescent Guard has been popped, and now it is full on 3v3. Encore still going to find 2 stuns, 2 charms, and the True Shot Barrage will take Feng Yue down. And 2v1 now is opened up here as Jackie Love will also drop 2 kills in favor of anyone's legend.
มันได้ได้ยังไงวะ
Absolutely overpowered
ไม่พอมีเย
in
อะ
their own jungle.
Am I allowed to say I'm still kind of okay with that from Top Esports? Like, we know Cream isn't going to be able to join for this fight, and it's really important for AL to get all of these plates. While this was happening, I think Top Esports, they traded gold on the map. That's what we saw in the last set of plays, where instead of immediately going for the objective, they made sure their side lanes were in a proper position, and then they moved in. AL, their composition is great at being able to react, great at being able to make fast plays with the Realm Warp and the Grand Starfall, but now they still need to be able to recall and buy all of their items. And I'm looking at this Dragon coming up in 2.5 minutes. This is a bit of an overextension, I think, from Top Esports. Jackie Love just used his flash, and we can't bring Annie over. This is, I think, just too much from them coming forward for this play. And I honestly, it's good that AL got this. I think Top Esports probably shouldn't have given them this trade because they could have just gone straight back to some of their lanes and not given over as much gold.
I mean, speaking of gold, take a look at the scoreboard right now. It's a 1,000 gold lead for Top Esports, but 2,000 of that is
ไม่เป็นไรได้อยู่3มังกรอะตัวพอยต์ตัวหน้า
pushing on the top
แต่มันเป็นมังกรที่แบบผมเฉยๆว่ะ
but no reason
คือเกมนี้เขาไม่มีตัวที่มันแบบถึกธรรมชาติแล้วแบบใช้มังกรเชมเทคคุ้มเลยอ่ะมีแค่เฉาบางเฉาพอใช้ได้อยู่โอ้แจ็คกี้เลิฟชิ้น2เล่นไอ้นี่ลาบิดไฟคันนอนยิงไกล
or something along those lines. So the way that these fights have been working out for Top, not great unless Cream is here to be able to dish out some of this damage in the mid game.
Great job from the production team over on the LPL showing the total gold graph. Fantastic respect from Swayon. We are doing some wide vision pans. Okay, Pantheon just showed top lane, Top Esports. This means that your Jace is now allowed to farm the bot lane wave. Congratulations, you got yourself a prize. It's another 150 gold for yourself there. Muramona's almost done though here for Swayon, and I mean Hope's kind of on a similar scale. Will finish his coming up rather soon for this Dragon, but I'm looking at what is Rise going to bring to this team comp because he should be finishing his run of ages in the next few minutes, but probably not before this next Dragon.
ท็อปดาเมจมันจะขาดแล้ว
Embrace will need to probably realm warp back as he doesn't have teleport to get back into lane.
เกมมันต้องนำอ่ะพอมันเป็นจินแอนนี่แล้วก็แบบมีเจสด้วยแต่ก็ได้แหละถ้าโปกเรื่อยๆแล้วไฟสวยๆอีกรอบอ่ะแบบที่ผมบอกดาเมจแม่งมีชุดเดียวไม่ใช่อันนี้ไม่ใช่วิ่งไวครับอันนี้มันเป็นแบบได้กันเขาเรียกอะไรได้กันดาเมจเพิ่มนิดนึงตอนใกล้ตายแล้วก็เพิ่มดาเมจนิดนึงตอนใกล้ตายต่ำกว่า25%มั้งเท่กันดาเมจ 13% แล้วก็บวกดาเมจอีก 13% ถ้าผมจำไม่ผิดนะประมาณนั้นนะมันเป็นโซที่ผมให้ว่าแบบน่าจะเฉยๆสุดแล้วในทุกโซแต่ก็ไม่แย่ดีกว่าไม่มี
Shield is a lot of HP with the Soul Furnace next to it. I think Jackie Love gets a lot of time to be able to move around the map thanks to his
ประเด็นคือใครมันจะฆ่าไซออนได้วะเนี่ยยิงไม่เข้านะ Jackie Love.
The shield down. Okay, we went through the first part of the phase for this raid boss.
จินมันจะยิงคนเข้าคือรอชิ้น3เลย
Just his presence alone is enough to allow for AL to regain control of the river. However, without that shield, becomes a little bit more vulnerable and is now down to half HP.
มันต้องโป๊กไปเรื่อย
and prodding from Top Esports. To throw at the ultimate and take down the Annie. Grand Starfall comes in and TES flash away. Anyone's Legend now has an advantage in this fight. Swayon flashes in, but has to then get out of there. And now
Jackie Love
the curtain call. The curtain will be shut right in front of Top Esports' eyes. There's the chin going down. There's 3 kills in favor of anyone's Legend, and they will deny the Dragon Soul for now.
Massive mistake, and this is going to be Baron here. AL went out big time. Playing in the 5-on-5, if you're going to play with Ezreal and this Rise, you got to be worried about being able to chunk through the front line. Tien feels like he's allowed to do so much with Sundered Sky and Black Cleaver, but they don't have the damage requisite. You were mentioning the fact that Jin doesn't have 3 items. Swayon and Fengyue, what can you do? How much poke damage can you get down?
The 20-year-old top laner having to do a lot here as the teleport comes in for Cream. He gets the flash away from the decimating smash, but throws Tibbers out on the Tarzan. Is going to force anyone's Legend back, and the damage from Cream is really starting to come in. The pain train will continue. Flandre is still very low. He throws Tibbers with the Roar of the Slayer. Allow for anyone's Legend to live, but the Baron still remains up.
Baron's going to actually be started by Top Esports. We're going to get a replay after this Baron gets taken because Jackie Love, that curtain call may have costed you the soul, and We'll see if that's necessarily the game. Tarzan doesn't have ultimate. There are no buttons. I think AL, if you fight for this Baron, you might just cost yourself a large portion of this game.
Waiting for that choo-choo train to be called. When will Flandre enter the fight? It will not be in time. As TN secures the Baron Nashor. And even though they lose the fight down in the Dragon Pit, Top Esports come away wearing purple.
What a tense game here. We wanted to see a close series. This is Top Esports coming off of a loss versus Weibo, and AL kind of on the upswing. This is an important week here for AL. They've had 3 series. They've already won their first one. And if they want to have any claim from the community and just from the standings at being a top-level team, taking wins off of Top Esports and other teams like this is really, really important to do that. So they're keeping it close, and they're going to need to continue, and they're going to have a massive power spike here as Shanks is going to tick over to level 14 with this Rod of Ages being complete soon. He is going to be a beast in these fights, and that 1700 gold lead is going to have to evaporate soon.
โอ้โหแล้วจะบอกแล้วมันจะตายเพราะว่าหิวป่าพี่เทียนโอเคเมียนเตะ
Using the Jin
ออบเจกต์บูอีกแล้วออบเจกต์เลสอีกแล้วเกือบแล้วนะมึง
Right now they're not really in position to get these waves out into great places. They instead
สเกลลิงถึงทัมมิ่งแล้วช้าง
invading the enemy jungle.
ไล่ที่ได้สบายแล้วตอนนี้
But that doesn't result in these towers going down. And there's already a minute and a half burned off of this Baron power play without much being taken down.
So I think the idea here for Top Esports is that if you go into bot side jungle and you get the timers for his Krugs and his Raptor and his Red, you kind of have an idea as to where his top camps are going to be. And now we are 2 minutes before the Dragon. You have time to push out these next couple of waves, whether that's in top lane or in mid lane. Mid lane's going to always be the easiest one for them to locate, but I think Baron right now for Top Esports is about being able to cheat priority around the map and just getting a wave stacked. If it's just one wave, that's fine. We're not really looking to siege on a turret. We're looking to set up for that objective on the opposite side of the map so that AL eventually have to answer.
มันต้องเบิร์ดแบบว่าสักตัวหนึ่งให้ตายไปก่อนอะไฟ55ยาวๆยังไงท็อปก็สู้ไม่ได้นะสู้ไม่ได้
The inhibitor tower down there left on the menu as they will shift their focus now to the top side. Wayon getting a wave pushed in. He's 2 levels ahead of Shanks, partly thanks to that top lane quest that accelerates your experience gains.
Hold เปิดเลยจุฬาน
effective, but Flandre is going to push
ตาย
the
เลยนะ
initiative. Send
เฮ้ย
the
โอ้โหแต่
ultimate,
เลือกมุม
but
สวย
Shanks might have gone a little too far forward. Kyle
โอ้โหดาเมจไม่พอปิดปะเนี่ยโอ้ใครเอาแม่งไม่ตายด้วยซ้ำ
Wayon is going to eventually
จุฬา
go
น
down
ตาย
to
ครับ
Tarzan, but on the backside of things, Tian
เขียนแม่งเอาชีวิตไปแลกมาแล้ว
in his own right.
โอ้โหดูแซว
Flandre
อันนี้
now
ทำมาตา
unkillable against 3 members
ซ้อนมาตา
of Top Esports, and nobody is going to be close to taking him down. Only down
แต่ยี่เลิฟ
about
กูเดี๋ยวรอ
60%.
3 ชิ้นนะ3-4 ชิ้นนู่นเลย
That one went out. 2 for 1 in favor of
โอ้โห
anyone's
ไม่มี
legend
ตังค์ครับ
as
แจ็ค
they
กี้
defend
เลิ
their
ฟ
top lane turret.
If AL were even closer in goal to their opponents, I wonder if that kind of turns on its head, because we saw Fengyue just basically full health shield Swayon during that fight. That guy was unkillable even though Sion and Tarzan were on top of him. Look at this Jace's health bar. If this game was much better in favor of Top Esports, this might have just been a win. He gets more shielding. They try to go on to Shanks. Great flash, and Cream is trying to apply damage, but this front line from AL, man, this Sion and Pantheon is just clogging up the ability for Jackie Love to move in. And that's where some of the damage concerns we had
โอ้โหโดนได้อีก
start to come
พี่คี
true.
บกู
Cream on
โอเคตัว
side.
ทองทันสวย
In severe danger. Already has to go golden, but there's still 3
เพื่อนมา
members
ทั
of
น
AL
เนี่ย
down here. He throws Tibbers out and will save his life.
โอ้โหถ้าเมื่อกี้รูทโดนนะบอกเลย
The Dragon is certainly now going to be AL favored. Tarzan's at half HP, but he has the Guardian Angel. He has
โอ้โห
extra
แล้วโดนปิด
lives
อีก
now, right?
จุฬาน
He's sent in to try to choke
แฟลชครับ
Swayon
โอเค
out. He has
ส
to
วย
flash away,
แล้ว
but
แฟลช
immediately
เปิด
gets followed up
หาย
by
ก่อน
2 flashes of the AL frontline, who are now
สามารถ
unkillable
ตาย
here in this game.
จุฬานไหวไหม
Going
ลูก
onto Swayon without a flash
โอ้โห
should be able to
เขียนกูก็ไม่ไหว
eventually
แล้วเหมือน
push
กัน
him
วะ
out of the picture as Tian is nearly taken low as
โอ้
well.
ไม่มี
There's
ภาพ
the
แล้วเกม
arcane
นี้
shift forward, and Hope gets another one into the kill column. 2 more kills in favor of
ไม่มี
anyone's
ดาเมจ
legend,
แล้ว
and they will be able to claim their second Drake of the game.
Well, AL, I hope you thank Flandre for this Sion champion, because he is making it impossible. And Top Esports, they may have just lost their AD carry. That's going to be his cleanse. Jackie Love will live, and another Dragon will go over to AL, who are climbing ever so steadily back into position to lead this game from the front.
And not only that, to lead the standings, to push the tempo here in Group
เรียบร้อยเลย
3 series win streak for AL. And they're looking to turn it into a
4.5
that was presumed to be the best in the league throughout the first half of the regular season. But so far, their composition, the way that they played out this mid to late game arc, has really been at another level.
This is just the life of Jace versus Sion, Rise, and Pantheon.
มันเป็นฟอนต์ทูแบ็กอะยังไงมันต้องยิงไซออนก่อนแหละ
Maybe a lack of coordination. It does seem like top esports are kind of scrambling in these
แต่
fights.
ไงมันก็เบิร์ดไม่ตายจริงๆทาเห็นมันขาดเลยแม่งคือแบบต้องมันจินมันต้อง3ชิ้น4ชิ้นอะคือมันเก่งจินมันจะมีดาเมจให้อีกทีคือ4ชิ้นเลยแบบยิงให้แต่ว่ามันยิงแทงไม่ตายเนี่ยตัวคอนมันเนี่ยอีกไกลเลยครับจะกินเลิฟ
There are too many Snorlaxes in our way, and we
จะกินเลิฟบอกอีกไกลเลยกว่าจะเจาะกรอ
Too much bamboo been consumed.
True. So I'm now looking at this like there's gonna be what looks to be a mortal reminder completed soon for Jackie Love. Actualizer's already done here for Shanks. A 3-item Scion. You're living the dream as AL. You know your front line is going to be relevant, and maybe top esports miss their window to be able to make much happen, and they can't split push now. Just the globals that AL have had access to with no flash on Swayon, those are big ticket items for you to be looking for.
To top esports' credit, penetration items are now starting to come through. We have a Surrealist for Zoyan, just getting the mortal reminder for Jackie Love. Will that be enough though? As anyone's legend really are able to play these front to backs out well now with the way their composition has been structured. Tarzan face checking a bush and not caring at all as he already stuns out TN. But now it might be Shanks out of position. He pops the snare to the actualizer. And who's out of position with who? This Rise becomes unkillable and indomitable as 2 to 3 members will eventually go down. Guardian Angel onto TN will save his life, but only momentarily. It's a double kill into the hands of Tarzan, and Baron now belongs to anyone's legend.
I think the target selection from AL has been exquisite in the back half of this game. Tarzan and the rest of the team, they just say, oh, Fengyue, you're dead. You are not allowed to be here as Karma. You don't have a front line, and they're not protecting you. And so when you give up the nice juicy crab meat that is behind the shell, you get rid of the Karma, and suddenly some of the frontline possibilities for top esports dissipate like that. Top esports lose out on the Baron. AL 7,000 gold. Every single minute that passes here, Grapes, I start to get less and less kind of enthusiastic about seeing a soul here in this game.
Yeah, it feels like even if top esports are able to claim this next dragon,
7.4K
in terms of just how far ahead the rest of AL are, sure that increased damage reduction or damage resistance.
แล้วจะกินเลิฟเพิ่ง3ชิ้นมันขาดไอ้อีกอันนึงอะ
Will it matter?
ไอ้มากี่โมงอะพี่จ๋า
7,000 health Scion and this Tarzan champion that seemingly is never going to go down. I think working towards a death stance for his 4th item.
All right, everybody at home, for all the top esports fans that are keeping the copium alive, you are essentially saying, please give us another 7 minutes in this game. You're playing 7 minutes in Ascend. We don't have 7 minutes in Nirvana. They played yesterday. If Infinity Edge Jhin, 4th item, is possibilities for top esports, that is kind of the only way they can win and kill the Scion. But even that, I think, is really, really hopeful thinking right now. AL are knocking on the base. They've got the Scion splitting in mid, and now they're going to bring some of these minions over, and they're going to go to a 10,000 gold lead before the next dragon even spawns.
It's another fat wave crashed in mid lane at perfect times.
โอ้โหดูมันทำดิฟังเดย์
Doesn't find a knockup, but is able to find a little bit of poke. Charm will
โอ้โห
land
เรา
on
ไม่ได้
this
กด
way
อัน
on
ตี
as
ด้วย
well as TN, and without a guardian angel,
วิธี
that
กูเข้าไป
Xin Zhao
ตาย
gets
เลยอะ
melted.
ไม่ได้กดอันตีด้วย
Feng Yue, the
ซ้ำ
next
อะ
target. Cream and Jackie Love have to run for the
Oh.
hills, but the hills are too far
Oh,
away
ระเบิด
from
พลัง
their
ไปแล้ว
own Nexus going down. A double kill into the hands of the Ezreal. The Nexus tower is going to start to melt, and AL continue their winning ways. They withstand the early game storm and jump out to a 1-0 series lead over the #1 seed in the LPL.
Well, the Hills have eyes, and like I said earlier, the Hills might have hands as well. AL, they completely navigate after a
เรียบร้อย
bad
1-0 ก่อนครับ
early game.
AL
They've got hands, they've got brains.
อันนี้ดู
Only
คู่
thing
เดียว
we're
อะใช่
missing
ครับ
is
ป
a
ก
hill
ติ
with
ว่าเจ็บ
legs.
คอนะสิเจ็บคอจากเมื่อวาน
Far enough.
เดี๋ยวต้องแบบพักนิดนึง
As AL end up coming out on top. You saw Flandre's expression. He was like, "Whatever. I played Sion. Let's get this over with." And he walks back out to the right, back to stage left to try to talk to his coach. Give me a better champion, something that has a little bit more impact in the early game. But he certainly was my player of the game. Just the ability to generate pressure, to have as much health and resistance as he did. Really important in terms of swinging those mid-game fights back towards AL.
That's why you can't outblind Jace in this meta. We saw it at the beginning of Split 2. We had a couple of like the Korean and Chinese top laners just deciding like, oh, we're going to blind Jace top. It's OP this game. No, brother. You cannot do that when there are things like Sion up on the table. You have to ban these things away. I'm actually real quick going back to the bans. What did they get rid of? They get rid of Anivia. They were afraid of potentially having to play against Anivia top again versus the Jace. And they got rid of the Yorick. Not enough bans, I think, in my opinion.
I mean, those are good bans against the Jace, but there are just too many answers available. It's one of those things that is going to continue to be a question mark that we throw top esports this way. Obviously, Zoyan had an incredible start to the year, namely on champions like the Jace, the Nard, the smart carries. Once they start to find answers, once the opponents are able to understand how this guy wants to play the game, will he be able to adjust back? That's always the big thing to focus on for a rookie player like Zoyan. And he did not have the answer against Zika. It didn't seem like he really had the answer in game number 1 against Flandra.
I'm just really impressed by AL with the amount that they've been able to bounce back. I had very early written off this team with them bringing in Bigway after some controversy on BLG with their Worlds run in 2025. I didn't think that Bigway would be the appropriate coach to maybe unlock this team. I said that if they have one bad week, maybe just the mental of this team completely plummets. But there's a lot of experienced voices here. I think especially someone like Flandra that they can lean on. Tarzan and his individual experience really kind of showing up in the forefront there. They were able to problem solve their way out of this early game. It was only a 3,000 gold lead, but we were really looking at the dragon stacking early on for top esports where we're saying, okay, you can go down some early gold, but you kind of brought it back. I feel so bad for Cream, man. Look at that, like, how often do we see a 40,000 damage almost any game? That is ridiculous.
Yep. What, 1,200 DPM? Got a little bit of help from TN as well, as they were really able to navigate the early game to the fullest as we take a look at some of these replays, starting with these plays here onto Shanks, onto Tarzan. It was once again the story of the TES mid-jungle just dominating the Rift in the early game. But AL were again able to withstand that pressure and come back with a vengeance. Tarzan, knowing that he was behind, does not return to the mid lane, instead looks towards both sides of the map, first here in the top side, then down bottom to get himself back into the game.
And this was another game, I think, where I don't want to say it was Fungyue's fault, but the amount of times we saw AL pick out this rookie player and basically turn him into not only free gold, but also into essentially a free pick, created a lot of issues. This 2v2 for Jackie Love and Fungyue has not necessarily been solved yet. And so I'm kind of wondering what they are going to look like as we get closer and closer to playoffs, right? We're in the back half of the split. Every team has now played each other once in the round robin, and I think this is where we are going to get the closest and most clear picture of what these teams are going to look like as we get towards those best of fives.
Yeah, and that's where the inexperience for a team like TES might start to come into play. Sure, Jackie Love and Tien have a lot of experience, but Cream, even in his 3rd year, and then you combine that with the 2 rookies with less than 100 combined games of Tier 1 play. Once those pools start to get pinched, what will that actually look like? We mentioned it earlier this week, but we were talking about it also in the green room today. Top esports haven't played a Game 3 yet, let alone a Game 4 or a Game 5. How much will that impact this team that has looked so good at the start of the regular season?
It's so funny that we kind of bring that up because I just remember Top Esports with TN back in 2024. This team was incredibly dominant. They would win games and they would look like one of the best teams in the league, but they were kind of known as this kind of like glass jaw team. If you beat them once, they almost never were able to recover, whether that was in best of 3s or best of 5s. We saw them consistently lose out after not being able to adapt properly in series. So I wonder if that is going to be something that continues to follow a player like Tien, about these teams that don't have a lot of resiliency in these longer series. I mean, we even saw him during his tenure on Weibo last year. Kind of hit or miss, a little bit streaky. Obviously, him and Xiaohu didn't seem like they worked together all that well, and there were a lot of other problems with that lineup. But Top Esports, at least this time, Tien looked like one of the best players to start off the season. And we are seeing them start to fall apart. the most well-earned Scion MVP of the year, I think, already.
Yeah, a lot of the time these Scion players, you get into the back seat, you're like, all right, I'll carry a little bit later on. Flandre was making an impact from minute one on this Jace, or on the Scion against Swayan's Jace, continuing to pressure him out of lane, making sure he never fell too far behind, and then being an absolute unit once we got to those late game team fights that AL dominated so well. So good job for Flandre in, what was it, his 1100th and like 75th game in Tier 1 as of late. So he gets player of the game. Unanimous decision here by the LPL caster. I think unanimous on our front here on the co-stream as well. But that's going to do it for our coverage of game number 1. Before we head to a short break, we want to give a big shout out to everybody watching here on the stream, especially to our coffee supporters. And if you want to support us here on LPL English, you can consider becoming a coffee supporter, as it is the best way to continue to support us here on LPL English financially, with the vast majority of your contributions going directly to the cast and crew that make this show happen every single time we take to the Rift. You can check out the link in the coffee. The link is in the chat right now. You can unlock features like early access, some of the content that we put out, like our weekly podcast, as well as maybe some interviews that are happening. I know internationals are down the line, specifically NNA, a little bit later on in the year. We don't know just yet, but we could get some early questions from you guys
our New
on
York
the coffee
ticket
page if you want to take a look at that. Anyone's Legend up 1-0 here in this best of 3 to kick off our 3-day weekend in Xi'an. Will Top Esports play their first Game 3 of the season, or will it be another 2-0 sweep for the Pandas in red? We'll be back after a short break here on LPL English.
วันนี้เขาอีเวนต์อะไรวะเนี่ยมาแบบจัดเต็มจัดเลยเมื่อกี้
Welcome back, everybody, to LPL English, where anyone's legend open up our first series of the day with a 1-0 lead. They weathered the initial early game power of Top Esports, and they end up winning the late game with a incredible front-to-back team fight composition. Reminder to stay tuned for later in the day. We'll have Weibo against a new-look Invictus Gaming roster. Nia coming in place of Bernard in the mid lane as they continue to figure out some of their roster shuffling. But those teams are at the bottom of Group Ascend at this point. There's chances that they could pass one another here. This is a battle in the top 4 right now, Alkin. The way that we saw AL play and the way that they have been playing lately, this is certainly a team that can continue to rise up the ranks as we close out the regular season over these next 3 weeks.
And maybe they were the ones that made out like bandits on the trade, right? They brought in Helper to kind of maybe push them with the absence of Tabe going over to JDG. And then it was like, okay, what is Helper going to do? He won coaching staff of the split, and he's gone before playoffs is even over. They got bounced out in 4th, and then he goes over to Invictus Gaming, who started off really hot and have just trailed losses ever since then. They went 3-0 to now 5 series losses in consecutive order, which is a bit damning. So maybe Big Way actually ended up paying off.
Yeah, maybe AL has the sauce now with their new coach at the
Maybe
helm.
they also just have better players, but that's a
yeah, you know, going into the year, definitely would have said that, and I think that still carries over now. But hey, it goes to show that the loss of somebody like Tabe was so massive for this team, right? They were not looking like their same selves, and they still aren't fully right back online. Like, this was a team that was pretty single-handedly the best team in the LPL throughout the end of split number 2, going into split number 3 of last year. Obviously, BLG end up coming back and winning the end of that split. But of course, you know, internationals aside, AL certainly are a team and a roster that has been proven to reach these high highs, but the question was it a Tabe diff, or is there other stuff involved? I think these 5 players want to prove that it wasn't just our coach that was getting us to these places. We can also be a top team, even with a different person at the helm.
I love that point because I remember seeing so much of the international community after we saw AL make their first appearance at MSI. Every single person online is just saying, oh, it's Tabe, it's Tabe, it's Tabe. But I do want to remind folks that even when they had a different set of top jungle setup for this team, when Tabe was on AL in 2024, you know, that team actually ended up making top 6, and then they were able to bring in some new, fresh talent. And Tarzan, any team he goes into here in the LPL is an immediate contender for at the very least top 3. And for a long time, it was, you're good enough to make it, but you weren't able to grab that trophy. now with that win underneath his belt, it feels like I think a lot of the demons are off of his shoulders, and he can kind of play like, yes, I am a championship winning jungle, and I can continue to show that on different iterations.
Hopefully he gets another one under his belt, as you know the hunger for another trophy is not going to just go away after winning the first for a player like Tarzan. He has his sights set on much bigger things throughout his career that he has still yet to achieve, but still has many opportunities to do so. Anyone's legend
ถ้าตามสแตทนี่คือเอลต้องไม่ใช่เอลท็อปต้องแพ้เกมนี้นะครับผมบอกเลยเพราะมันแพ้2-0ไม่ก็ชนะ 2-0 ตลอด
as we get ready for this next draft.
Alright, so looking at this draft coming in, I do think that Nocturne starts to climb in priority. Whether or not we will have Jarvan make it through, I think is also quite interesting. Do want to note that it is Top Esports again with first pick, or they have counter pick this time, so we're just going to get a normal draft. I know this has been a bit of a hiccup for you, so this is just going to be we're going to be back to normal.
Okay, so I know that first, whoever decides we want the pick first gets the 4 characters in Chinese at the bottom, but I am unable to tell half the time whether that means first pick or second pick. So I normally just assume it's first pick because
โอ้โหเราว่ารัดหลุด AL จัดให้เอาแบนอากาลิคีมด้วย AL
Also I'm looking at
วายด็อกเทิร์นแบนตัวได้หมดเลย
Our producer Ilya also sent us
โอ้โหว่ารัสบายจัดอะ
look at it so that is also
โอเลียนารัมโบ J4 ปกตินะครับท็อปอันนี้แบนคอมโบหม้อไฟ
I tried to
โอ้โหแล้วดูลูเซียนลูเซียนนามิไหมหรือลูเซียนมิริโอ
We don't know if this will go top lane, but we have not seen Flandra play it, and it is, I think, probably one of Hope's best champions that he has very rarely been able to get access to this year, outside of a couple of games very early on. Actually, looking at it, yeah, he's gotten a couple of them, but he's gotten 0 Varus games in Split 2. So one of the most dominant champions that we will see for AL, and Nefiri now being taken.
โอ้นาฟิลีก่อนเงี้ยเอาก็กดบาทปะแต่ตัวบาทไม่ค่อยดีว่ะแต่เล่นได้
If you want to try to take away some synergy with this Lucian locked in, a Corki Nami might make sense, and you want to send that, but you would have to send the Varus top lane early on. It would most likely be Feng Yue getting his pick of the litter in the Nami or the Milio to round out this first phase of bans. Shanks has been very comfortable blinding this Azir as his most played champion this season. We have seen questionable performances on this champion specifically, just his current.
อาเซียก่อนอาเซียเราจะลุ้นด้วยเหรอ
And without Rise, it does mean that we're probably going to have to see something a little bit different from Cream. He has played some Ahri. I know Aurora has also been quite fun, but usually with Nefiri, you do want a mid-lane champion that can give you point-and-click crowd control. So to see her kind of decoupled from a champion like Annie is a bit worrisome. AL are going to go for the tried and true. It seems like they've been really loving this Skarner and Azir combo as a 2v2. It has been something that has been getting a lot of shift in focus. And so AL, they have the range with Azir and Varus. Skarner can technically be good, but with Emilio on the opposite side, do you think that Top Esports have some legs to stand on when it comes to trying to find these 5-on-5s?
Yeah, Emilio not only a great pairing with the Lucian,
เป็นมิลิโอจริง AL เป็นสกาเนอร์โอเคเปลี่ยนใจไม่เอาแล้วนอตลุสแต่ก็โดนแบนไปท็อปแบนนอตลุสนะครับ AL แบนเป็นเอาลล่า
that have a lot of heavy crowd control in their ultimate abilities. We get ready for our second ban phase. No real hesitation to just target the mid lane for AL. Knowing that Cream has a lot of interesting counters that he can pull out. Remember, he started off as an assassin player back when he was on OMG. Those are always the traditional answers into the Azir as well.
I'm honestly a little bit shocked that I didn't even recognize that Bard made it through and that AO weren't willing to prioritize this champion in the first phase just to get your bot lane pair. Maybe just putting a lot more effort into making sure that we take care of one of Cream's most played champions this split. Azir at 15 games, the next highest is 7. That is a massive gap in terms of priority. So Renekton and Aurora, to me, kind of screams that we are probably looking at trying to prioritize either the Anbessa or going for things like Cassante here for topside. Again, also, we don't have the Yorick quite coming on through yet for Flandra. So for Top Esports, what is going to be Cream's champion?
The Hui. for some extra range.
โหแบนบ่ายนี้ดี
I was saying this last
แล้วไม่
earlier this
อ๋อ
week.
โยเนะโยเนะเนี่ยโยเนะเจออาเซียดีกูด
It's really hard to tell.
ตกใจเลยลืมอีกฝั่งกดอาเซียด้วยว่ะ
Yone as that assassin answer into the Azir, something very classically we've seen even in the early
วารัตเนโกะโหเล่นโคตรแข็ง
between AL and TES
วารัตเนโกะ
start of 2025.
I'm worried if we pick Nico that our team is a little too squishy. I think with Yone and the interactions that the mid jungle of top esports have versus their team, they can very easily pick this champion off in side lanes or even in the approach towards fights. What is going to be Flandra's champion? I don't know a champion that's really going to tie it together. We're going to go for the Mbessa like I was mentioning. So all about dive, all about abusing the range of Varus and Azir so that eventually Mbessa and Nico can try to catch some players off guard. I think giving Cream one of his best champions in his career is a bit dangerous. And Melio, I think Melio is just way too OP in this kind of draft. We'll see if it ends up paying off for this team.
เกวนจริงเหรอแต่เกวนเจอป้านี่หนักอยู่นะโอเคเป็นเกวนครับ
That's something that Emilio is going to answer
ไม่ดิเกวนมันไม่ได้แพ้ป้าค่ะปะมันแค่แบบว่าช่วงเลนมันก็โดนปกติ
range champions that are going to be issuing out a lot of poke on the AL side. Top esports, although their composition is not necessarily the most meta, it is certainly something that can really take advantage of the champions that AL has.
ดาบท็อปมันดูเลทพอสมควรเหมือนกันนะอยู่ในเกวนเนี่ยแต่มีคนเล่นต้นเกมให้มีแจ็คกี้เลิฟจะเถียนเล่นต้นเกมให้ก็ไม่แย่เอลก็สกิลนิดนึงนะครับแต่ว่าต้นเกมก็เก่งมีอาเซียเนี่ยนิดของนิดนึงมันจะไหวเหรอขวาทำไมคิดว่าไม่ไหวอะผมว่าไม่ได้แย่ขนาดนั้นนะแบบมันมีเหตุผลที่กดอยู่อะแต่ละตัวแต่ดาบแม่งดูแบบไม่มีตัวเปิดเลยที่แย่ดาบขวามันแย่ไม่มีตัวเปิดแต่ที่เหลือคือโอเคอยู่ดาบแบบโคตรแรงเกม
So this is going to be a draft that if top esports win, I think is going to be an emphatic fashion.
Composition has a lot of answers to a top esports team that has seen a 12-game win streak turn into a 3-game loss streak. A loss here would not put them behind AL in the standings, but would tie them in match score and set up interesting situations as it comes down to tiebreakers at the end of the season. A top 4 bid and automatic place in the playoffs is nice, but getting a higher seed is even better than that. TES looking to try and rewrite this narrative here, even up our series, send us to a Game 3 against AL as we're on to the Rift for game number 2.
Wow.
มาโอ้โหฟิล์มโอ้โหรับหนักเกินแบบพี่จ๋าช่วงแรกลำบากแล้วครับอยู่เนี่ย
They didn't even wait for each other to finish. There was just overlapping gyos. Someone was
หลังเวล6เจอกันผมบอกเลยได้อาเซียรัว
put early vision down not only to stop Nefiri from potentially jumping over the Baron pit wall and invading.
โหโดนใส่เลยแจ็คกี้
You get early vision onto Tarzan.
โหใส่สุดครบครึ่งหลอด
A great trade happening
เฮ้ย
here.
แปลกๆคีมเอาดีๆโอเคโหถ้าเมื่อกี้แทงโดนมันมีสิทธิ์ได้ค่าอยู่นะถ้าแทงโดนมีสิทธิ์ได้ค่าอยู่ยังไม่2ด้วย
Early poke from Shanks is really the one time that the Azir has the advantage in this 1v1 matchup.
Looking at jungle, mostly just looking at Nefiri. Does she decide to jump over
โห
the wave?
ดูไปปล่า
The wall doesn't elect to go for
พี่
it.
แจ็คกี้
It's just going to be full clears to opposite sides.
แจ็คกี้เลิฟคือแบบดุมาก
to Gwen, not likely a position that they'll find themselves in. And I think top esports are starting to lose the back end of some of these trades, but once they get some of their first recalls in, I am really liking how this top esports draft can finish out a game.
All about how these individual matchups end up shaping out. Cream with the soul unbound, forcing Shanks back, allowing for that wave to be in a good spot for the Yone to farm up.
ฟังเดย์ก็ดูจะแบบตึงๆนะข้างบนแต่ยังไม่เสียยานะฟังเดย์ชวนนี่เสียไปแล้วนึง
Up in the top side, pretty good matchup for Zoyan here into Flandres and Bessa.
มีต่อทีวันทีโรอีกไหมไม่มีเลยไม่ได้เซต
To pilot a carry in one of these carry v carry matchups hasn't necessarily gotten that opportunity in the last couple of series.
มันจะทันเหรอวะเพราะปกติคือไอ้คู่2 LCK มันจะเริ่มตอนไอ้เนี่ยเกม2คู่นี้จบอะก่อนเกม2คู่นี้จะจบไม่น่าทันปะเดี๋ยวไปส่องกัน
It'll be quite interesting to see if Swayon can actually
perform,
give us that big carry matchup. And should
หล
be
บบอร์ด
spotted
หลบวิชั่น
here.
ได้นะเนี้ย
And trying to go for a dive underneath this turret.
ได้ครับต้องให้มิโลแตกก่อนปะโอ้แจ็คกี้เลิฟสวยวะ
already gets taken down pretty low. They're trying to land the final blight stacks, but it won't be enough.
เริ่มเกมหนึ่งไงก็ไม่ทันทั้งนั้นยังไงก็ไม่ทัน
On the other
โอ้
side,
โดนได้ไปไหนข้างบน
barely going to go down. Flandre flashes forward.
แค่เว็บติดนะอันเนี้ยเคลียร์ให้หน่อยดิเว็บติดอะ
Well, all of my narratives talking about that Flandre
โดดใส่เลยแชงบอกไหวครับแชงบอกไหว
one of the biggest gold sinks for this AL team is not at all coming true.
ลบ1วะเนี่ยโอเคครีมได้อยู่
Whether it is jungle attention from Tarzan or him individually playing very well, he is putting in a lot of work to bring this team back up to standard. And that gank from Tarzan really well timed to try to cut away at what could be a problematic Gwen later on.
คือคู่นี้มันจบ 2-0 แล้วแหละแต่มันไม่ทันเลยเก็ตไหมมันไม่น่าทันเลยดิมันต้องไปตั้งเซตฟรีนั่งเซตข้างหลังอีกอะไม่ได้เซตไว้อะดิไม่ได้กะจะดูอะไอLCK อะเดี๋ยวเปิดให้ก็ได้แต่รอกันเดี๋ยวรอคู่นี้จบอะถ้ามันจบทันก็เดี๋ยวไปนั่งเซตฟีดแป๊บนึงอุ้ยโหตายแล้วครีมมีแฟลชปะไม่มีโอเคไม่ตายออทัซันเสียแฟลชไปแล้วโอเคเกือบแย่พี่ครีมเกมนี้ใครผมว่าเอาจริงคือผมว่าท็อปอีสปอร์ตมันดาบมันแย่ไปหน่อยมันไม่มีตัวเปิดเอาจริงมันไม่ได้แย่เวอร์นะแต่มันไม่มีตัวเปิดเฉยถ้าเปิดคือโยเนเปิดซึ่งมันดูไม่ดีจัดเลยโอ้กลางเงินเท่าเลยอะแต่น่าจะโดนเวฟนี้ว่ะโยเนน่าหมดเวฟตรงกลางอาเซียนนำแล้วอย่างเงี้ยชอบทีมไหนครับชอบขวาครับถ้าชอบทีมนั้นไม่ชอบดาบอะผมให้ว่าดาบมันไม่ได้แบบห่างกันมากนะแต่ว่าแบบของท็อปมันไม่มีตัวเปิดไฟอะมันไม่มีตัวเปิดอะมันมีแต่ตัวแบกอะเกวนท็อปเลนก็ตัวแบกกลางโยเนก็ตัวแบกมันไม่มีตัวเปิด
Kind of here for top esports, it'll be another first dragon as that'll be TN being spotted, pulling this dragon out, leveraging the bot lane prio, which by the way, Jackie Love not only up a kill but also
ล่างมีไพโอให้เลยเปิดมังกรสบายอันนี้ข้อดีนะเล่นลูเซียนมิเลโอตัวมันเก่งต้นเกมจะจัดเซอร์ไพรส์กลางรอบนี้ตายแล้วทีมอุ้ยบัฟเฟอร์สวยใครอยู่ครับใครอยู่แต่ตายอยู่ดีนะทีมกลับมาตายโหแล้วให้อาเซียด้วย
I think it is so surprising to see Cream stumble on this champion.
สวยนะอันเนี้ย
kind of what he made his name on, especially on the international stage. So to see him
โอ้ล่าเสียต้นเกมรวยแล้ว
matchup, something that we had talked very early on.
คีบห่างไม่พอแล้วได้ค่าได้เพจโอ้โหชิบหายพอสมควรอาเซียเกิดครับเกมนี้ผมบอกเลยไม่นะแต่ตัวแบบเกมนี้จริงๆคือเกวนนะของท็อปอะโดนี้น่าจะเป็นแบบเล่นจังหวะให้ไม่น่าใช่ตัวแบกขนาดนั้น
kind of chipping into what Jackie Love was showing
เกมนี้ไม่มีใครทำอะไรเกวนได้ในไฟถ้าแบบกด W ดีๆ
very similar growth trajectories and stories of just how they have risen to be at the top of the LPL both are on weaker teams
เอาสุดซะด้วยตอนนี้
careers it was OMG for Cream WE for Shanks but
ผมจะโดนเข้ากลางโอเคหลบได้
with these higher ups and they're always going to be compared to each other right because of that fact because they kind of had very similar career paths and we definitely did a lot of comparing last year between these two teams once they ended up facing off. So far it has been Shanks with more of that international success and long term in terms of just winning these championships as well, but Cream certainly wants to change that narrative.
Actually, Kareem went to 2 internationals and made semifinals last year, so...
Oh, that's true. That was a fake semis.
What? What?
I don't know.
It's not our fault. It's not our fault that T1 gets to play
Okay.
3 LPL team or 2 LPL teams going up. That's just that. Come on.
You see the matchup into T1, you're like, all right, nice job, guys. We'll wrap it up.
It's kind
we'll
of
go
a
next
schedule
year.
loss, man.
We'll go
Bro,
next year.
they farmed like all of our seeds, man. They take our 2nd seed in AL. They take our 4th seed in IG. They take our 3rd seed. Like, dude, come on, man. All right, that's enough. That's
T1 aside, they're over on LCK if you want to watch that instead. We got grub fights here in the top side of the map. Tarzan gonna steal
สี่
final one, but it will be a 2-for-1 trade.
ขี่ไม่มีอันตี
Favor
เล
of
ย
anyone's legend.
มีนี่ว่ะแต่เลือดไม่พร้อมหัวเสียแทงอย่างแรงฮัลโหล
Forwards up, grip, soul inbound.
แซบครับอาเซียอาเซียแซบครับ
Shanks, Fate Sealed, available, but
โอ้
not
โห
going
ปอกนิดนึง
to use
ปอกนิดนึงอันนี้ปอกนิดนึง
right back, and making sure that top esports do not lose anybody.
All right, getting grubs. I'm happy, I think. Getting any of those for a champion like Mbessa and for Azir is always good, but similarly, if we're talking about side lane, if this Gwen's able to kind of let it rip, then the Beyblades are going to be going very well for top esports. If they can hit these turrets and get those plates, that's been kind of the big thing I've been harping on for all of this season, has been if you're not going to contest for Dragon, please go hit the turret plates. There is so much free gold in the game to be able to get you away, especially if it's not like a soul or a really important dragon you need to contest. We're coming up on one in a minute and a half's time in top esports with a dragon stack, and we have seen from them so far the priority that they're using with this bottom lane. And another important one where I think they need to be looking to try to take those away from AL.
ท่าที่ใส่กันไปตรงกลางผมปกติแล้วแบบโยเนเจออาเซียต้องอึดอัดนะแต่อันนี้โยเนอึดอัดแทนแย่
Which is all fine and dandy,
โอ้โห
but it's gonna end up
ทำมิ่งไม่ดีครับ
benefiting
ครีม
anyone's
ตาย
legend
แล้ว
because
โอ้แฟต
Tarzan
โอเค
is here first.
โอเครอด
Impale not
แต่แค่
gonna
เกือบ
get over
ไม่
that
ตาย
wall. So will be another ultimate being burned, but Tarzan able to establish some control now in the mid lane, trying to take away some of these chickens.
โดนยัดกลางบ่อยจัดเลยว่ะเกมนี้โย
Almost
เน
gave over the big one is Tien, but we'll just smite that one away. This is an interesting game here, Grapes, because if you just look at the gold advantage, you're saying AL are in a great spot, Azir's up 600 gold, and Bessa is up 500 gold. You're feeling good. Your solo lanes are doing, and you're gonna have a poke Varus later on in the game. I think most teams, more often than not, are gonna want to take that. But I think if you look at the backline access that this top esports team has, that could open up a lot of avenues for them.
เสียไม่เข้าเลยโยเน
So important here.
รอชิ้นแรกเงี้ย
No ultimate for Tarzan.
แต่อาเซียจะมาแล้ว
That is going to maybe
มานาชอมาก็สู้น่าสู้ไม่ได้นะโยเนต้องโยเนมันต้องรอเบรดเอารุ่นคิงเลย
Situation where
แต่หลักเขาซื้อบูทไปด้วยถ้าซื้อรองเท้าคือดีเลย์ไปอีกอะในขณะที่อาเซียมันไม่ได้ซื้อบูทอะมันไปนาชอเลย
very different situation. They had the early game comp last time around. That was why they're able to get those breaks. They're able to get a 2-0 lead with the team that's going to want to fight out these 5v5s, all the unique interactions that each of these champions have into AL's opposition. Certainly a much more promising sign of things to come. Tarzan does have his ultimate up in 5, so does Shanks. That means that this dragon actually likely will be contested. First, the battle will be around the Scuttle Crab. Top esports should control that. The question is what happens afterwards.
Look at top lane right now. Swayon hasn't finished an item, and as soon as Flandre pushes a wave and then goes into Fog of War, top esports say we're not fighting this, because if Gwen and Mbessa TP, AL win this fight every single time. An Eclipse finished already, and there we go. It's going to be Varus instead TPing in. 4-on-5 with Tien in the pit. I mean, Cream could find a flank. There's the Mbessa TP.
Very low, stolen away by Tarzan and AL, even up the dragon count. Two-man pop blossom as well, and Jackie Love dies before he can even issue the culling. The teleport comes in, but it might be far too late. As Swayon going to get slammed right back into the wall and impaled by the Skarner. Sent back to his demise. And anyone's mentioned an absolute domination around the second dragon pit. Cream, the only one on his team left alive, is going to have to run and run back
ถ้าท็อปอีสปอร์ตโดนเกมแรกคือไม่ต้องลุ้นละเกม2อะถ้าทีมอื่นยังได้ลุ้นอยู่ทีมนี้มันถ้ามันชนะเลยถ้ามันแพ้เลยเดี๋ยวหมายถึงว่าเกมแรกอะนะมันผลมันอยู่ที่เกมแรก
Jackie Love is not able to deal with the front line, and this is what we were talking about from the draft already. We saw signs of it from the laning phase. The top esports just discombobulated, desynced, and now giving up their dragon and giving over a 3,000 gold lead. This is just like, I think, blatant disrespect from Top Esports. This is a big fight from Kyle, and I said it already. Gwen versus trying to match this Ambessa, never going to win this one. They were not in position from Top Esports to try to contest for this dragon, and have now set themselves so far behind, trying to mount an impossible comeback.
I mean, Zwayan wasn't even able to play the game. He got CC'd 100-0 by Tarzan on the Skarner. Ixtal's impact straight into the Impale. Makes sure he goes down. He still has ultimate available because he wasn't even able to proc the first of his 3 issuances of the Needlework. A little bit more of a struggle now for a TES team that is all of a sudden reeling a little bit. A lot of these teams that started off the year hot starting to hit these mid-season slumps.
They're cooling off and maybe just recognizing how long the calendar is, you know? Saying, okay, we could take it a little bit slow. You know, regular season is you always want to try your best, but sometimes some wins are more important than others, as we say. So Cream down a level, gonna probably be down a couple turret plates here.
โหแล้วอาเซียที่มันได้ออกรองเท้าเจาะเวทอ่ะมันจะตายมันแรงมากนะอาเซียเจาะเวทดูเลยแทงมันเดียวตายอ่ะไม่ได้เล่นแล้วคีมเหมือนคีมจะไม่ค่อยช่ำหรือเปล่าอาเซียโยเนสอ่ะ
And he's now 4-0-2 on his signature Azir.
Well, Azir's gonna get this entire turret, and Cream still hasn't finished his role quest in mid. We're taking a replay. What happened here? Did Cream die while we were in a replay?
Might have missed this here, Kyle. Oh, he was playing bait for the Azir.
Wow.
And ends up going down.
He died.
Totally missed that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that AL have probably been one of the teams that have still prioritized Nico, and they've definitely been the smartest. I think back to that IG game where they played in Fog of War, they used Nocturne plus Nico to hide their ability to use their ultimate, and then we saw it again with Rise in the W matchup where they Rise ulted the Nico into
คือ
3
ถ้าตำแหน่ง
members
อื่น
and got a
นำ
huge
2K อะไรอย่างเงี้ยไม่ค่อยน่าเป็นห่วงนะเพราะเป็นอาเซียที่แม่งรวยขนาดนี้นี่โคตรแย่เลย
And now with this
โอ้มันออกไอ้นี่มาเลยครับ
the bottom lane turret, they're going to unlock so much gold for these solo
ซิกเกอร์
laners.
อำกาศ
They're
ไปเลย
giving this all to Shanks.
Yeah, get it into this Azir's pockets because if he's able to get accelerated
ออกมาเพราะรู้ว่าดาเมจพอแล้ว
there's no telling the amount of
ซื้อของกันตายพอแล้วขอแค่ไม่ตายพอ ได้เล่นท่าแบบไอ้นี้ได้ท่ายกกำแพงได้
At 15 minutes, we know that these team fights should in general work towards their favor as we get later on. But is that even going to happen at this point? Because right now it looks like AL are just going to run away with this game if it continues to go this way.
Look at this, 2,500 gold here, and that's going to be even worse. Only silver lining I can get over to Top Esports is that they've got the pity prizes, objective bounties claimed for this Yone. Will keep him within touching distance of the... I don't even want to say touching distance, there's literally a whole
ท็อปฟอร์ม
football
เริ่ม
field
ลีก
away from this
อัน
guy.
นี้มันยังไม่หายนะถ้าบอกว่าท็อปฟอร์มเริ่มลีกหายไปไหนหมดอ่ะอันนี้คือฟอร์มตอนมันเริ่มลีกนะเว้ยแมตช์แรกมันเล่นอย่างนี้เลยมันโดนอย่างนี้เลยโดนยับอย่างนี้เลย
I think having Seeker's arm guard to kind of as a pit stop to stop any of the shenanigans that are going to be here from the Top Esports comp now is essentially just like a free life. You get to bait in Top Esports and bring them into your huge team fight potential with this Nico and Skarner and Ambessa.
Yeah, and while AL might get individually countered by some of the champions like we were talking about at the start of draft, they're very strong champions in their own right? Like these guys, Varus and Bessa, Nico, top of the tier list both just in terms of the current meta and also AL's comfort level. So the way that they're able to play these fights out is still going to be very, very good. They're able to now finish off the last of these outer turrets now working the inner with the Rift Herald being issued by Tarzan. Jack 11
ท็อปอีสปอร์ตกูซึมว่ะ
about it. They're going to try to allow for TN to get some space here, looking for a flank, but Tarzan
โด
immediately
นดาซานไล่ยัดเรื่อยๆโอ้ my god ซึมเศร้าจัด
all of the pack. In goes Shanks looking for an ultimate, but not able to
โอ้
find
ดู
anything.
อาเซียมันเล่นดิตาย
And the rest of TN
เรียบร้อย
might
ที
go
ม
the offensive, but another crowd control. Chain
โดน
lands.
เชนซีตาย
Started it off with
ดึง
the
ล่าง
chain
กลับ
of
ไม่ได้
corruption, and everyone on AL were able to follow up.
Grapes, I hate to say this, but I think the game ended on that second dragon. The fact that Top Esports not only lost the game on them trying to make the play, but they now don't even have dragon stacking as a potential fallback
มีคนที่ชีวิตดูดีอยู่คนเดียวคือไอ้นี่สุหลานน้องสุหลานบอกต้องบอกแบกพวกพี่กันนะ
Like Azir is way too far ahead. Ambessa is completely disgusting and is now 13 already, and is going to be hitting that second item rather soon. Tarzan's on 2. We haven't seen Jackie Love do much with this bottom lane lead after that play. I think Top Esports may just go down 0-2 here in this matchup, and AL are going to move up. I mean, Cream, again, completely CC chain. He went for the gunmetal Greaves. So these are your upgraded Berserker Greaves. You're going to get more movement speed when you're dealing damage, but no tenacity. And I wonder if and when he is going to have access to these items or that stat line.
Yes, they just need to make something happen. They're going to try to find a play on this bottom side. Jungle's way on. Uses the blast cone into Tarzan. And now he's going to separate himself from the rest of this game. TES goes forward, but he immediately gets first down by piercing arrow with the puff.
เปิดไฟเหมือนจะดีแล้วมันโดนยก3ครับ
Members of TES, it will be Zoyan nearly
จุฬาน
taking down
แบก
Tarzan.
มากกว่านี้น้อง
Finally allow that shutdown
จุฬาน
to go through.
จุฬาน
But he's now on the wrong side of the map. Shanks goes
จุฬาน
forward.
มากกว่านี้น้อง
Shooting
โอ้
sands
โห
and a
แฟ
flash
ดยิง
forward.
เรียบร้อย
should do the deed. And it's
โอ้แชงมันเอาหมดเลยครับ
11-2 in favor of anyone's legend. They have continued to push the pace here in this game.
Everything is collapsing as Top Esports get more and more desperate to make a play work for them to find a pick. Jackie Love, he dashes forward.
She's at the culling, and the cozy campfire going to keep him alive. Soul Unbound comes forward for Cream, but he initially now has to snap right on back. Shanks hunting for that Emperor's Divide, not going to find it, but another arrow connects, and Feng Yue's down for the count. The Tangle Barbs land onto Cream as well, and he's forced to use that to try and escape. But Azir is hungry. Shanks is looking for another kill. Won't be able to take the Yone down. Top Esports able to
0-4 ไปแล้วโยเนะกู
get some sort of semblance back into this game, but AL are having none of it. It is now a 5,500 gold lead.
Yeah, JDG, whatever this, JD Esports, whatever this little graph is, let's bump that up another 8 to 9% right there, because this game is, quite honestly, frankly, over. I mean, 5,000 gold lead here. You have a super fed Azir in this game. I think we said that if Top Esports, if they fall behind, it's going to look pretty bad. It's going to continue to get worse for them here in this game.
โอ้เกวนพอเจอแทงแล้วแม่งถึกจริงมันการันตีชนะแทงอะแต่นั่นแหละ
Awesome. And that maybe buys them a few minutes in this game, but I think it is pennies in a bucket here as they're taking everything. Even got the mid-tier one halfway through this play. Shanks, by the way, put a turret behind them in the mid-tier one. So while they're losing their jungle, they're losing access to the map. They don't get to play split push because they got only one grub. They lost the Herald. Everything is going to the Pandas. And it's probably just going to be the series all by itself.
They're not done just yet. They're still looking again. Tangle Barbs connect. That call, the pack's not going to do anything about that. Flauncher follows up the public execution. And this Nefiri has not been able to do squat here in this second game. He's 0-3-1.
เกมนี้ไม่ได้เล่นนะ
Now AL can continue the push
เพื่อนทำไม่ได้เล่นนะเพื่อนทำให้ไม่ได้เล่นนะเกมนี้
They don't even need it to continue to have this push go down.
They have no ability to push in mid. Cream is like, I'll catch the wave on top lane, and then Shank shows up and he deletes the minion wave. A great bounce back from AL. Now going on a multi-series win streak. They took their win versus WE. They lost to BLG, but have been looking rock solid ever since. It seems like the bounce back for this team. And honestly, at the right time. Talk about it again for their schedule. They played IG a couple of days ago, a 2-0 victory there. They play Top Esports here. They take a 2-0, and then they play IG again. They could go 6-0 this week and slingshot themselves up to 7-3. That would leapfrog Top Esports and put them within top 3, maybe even top 2 conversation.
And for TES, they got to play Weibo tomorrow, the team that they just lost to a few short days ago. Right after, potentially getting slammed in a 2-0 fashion to anyone's legend. And that's just the nature of the LPL, the nature of these top teams continuing to play against each other at a very frequent rate in Group Ascend. TES got off to that 6-game win streak, but all of a sudden, one bad week and they're right back down to the middle of the pack.
Dragons here. This is probably the apex at which we will see Top Esports have any relevancy. This almost feels like the last gasp. They need to win this next Dragon fight. And this is where I think Swayon's Gwen needs to be basically the game decider. He is the one player that has gotten minimal amount of attention from AL. He has gotten some kills for himself. He is level 14. He's probably the most relevant player outside of maybe Jackie Love. And so top esports are going to have to play around their fledgling top laner if they want to even have a kind of a breath here in this series.
Well, that breath is going to have to be held for the next 5 minutes because this dragon belongs to AL after TN just gets bursted down by Shanks from a mile away. 5-0 and 5 on the Azir. Holds on the completion of the Zanyas because he hasn't even had to use it yet. He's able to buy a full-on Shadow Flame.
โหแล้วต้องปล่อยอีกแล้วไม่ได้ไฟท์
extra burst damage if they didn't have enough to begin with.
โอ้โหไม่เป็นไรโยเนะบอกใกล้ละใกล้ความจริงแล้วโอ้โหอาเซียมันชัดด้วยเฟรมด้วยโนนิดนะสัญญาใช้แค่นี้พอไม่ได้กดเลย
AL and honestly it is the most unlikely subjects. I think Flandra the last like 4 series has actually been rather impressive. He had a couple of whoopsies versus Bin and obviously they lose that series 0-2, but Flandra's improvement from the start of the split to now market, definitely starting to put himself in conversation for that all-pro votes, which we'll start to kind of get into as we close out the regular season here in week 5. But wow, 18 here. I'm gonna get distracted because I'll be honest, Grapes, this game is over from my perspective. You're now on sole point as AL, and you've been dominating for what has kind of felt the entire game.
Yeah, it feels like TES have maybe one more fight in them. If they can get the Infinity Edge onto Jackie Lift, they get a second item onto Cream. They already have 2 onto TN and Dusk and Dawn completed for Zwayon. But even if they're able to do that, still all the money is in AL side. It's going to be very difficult for them to even play this game out the rest of the way.
Oh
Zwayon,
my god. Secret
he's
Agent
in a bad
Zwayon
spot right now. I think he's actually going to still remain in the Fog of War and keep himself alive for now. Topic now becomes the Baron for anyone's legend as they have a lot of resources focused towards that top side. And that means that Zwayon is going to try to find a little cheeky play maybe on the Flandra before realizing that maybe that's not going to end up being the play. So he's out.
Yeah, maybe he actually just goes for a flank because they don't have eyes on Zwayon. The mid lane wave might be the only thing that shows. He's playing with a lot of respect. He knows he is the last hope for top esports. And if TES want a chance at this game, we've been talking about Dragon. We've been talking about maybe find a team fight about Zwayon. Anything to get this shut down on any one of these AL members, but particularly Shanks, is going to be pivotal. They need to kill this Azir and get him out of the fight if there's going to be any conversation of a game number 3. Aside from that, it is kind of just clean, collected play. Can AL just coast out for the next 2.5 minutes and get themselves ready for what is going to be a Dragon? Honestly, Graves, we might even see them send for a Baron if they make one pick with an Azir this fed.
Yeah, and just knowing that TES is always going to have to answer for the potential soul. Baron might just end up being free.
แม่งเอ้ยออบเจกต์บวกเจกเลสโอ้ตายเลยว้าวยังได้อยู่เทียน
back in favor of the public execution
ลากมาตรงนี้จับได้เกวนแต่เกวนมัน W ทันนาทีเนี่ยดาเมจมันทำอะไรไม่มีใครทำอะไรเกวนได้นะตอนกด W อยู่อะอาเซียผลักออกแต่อาเซียเลือดจัดเลยครับแชงแย่แล้วโอเคก่อนตายนะแชงยังได้อยู่
Top esports might
โอ้เงินลงจากกิเลฟ
the driver's seat, but they certainly are happy with getting a big shutdown.
1,000นะเมื่อกี้จากกิเลฟหวานเจี๊ยบ
When you are 7,000 gold behind, a 1-for-1 is exactly the trade that you want, and that shutdown goes over to Jackie Love. That is a massive influx of gold, but it's not enough. You need so much more in this game to come back. Going into this next Dragon fight, take a look back at this replay. I mean, there's some tools that were spent, but look at Zwayon in this fight. He buys so much time. Corrupted Era, Corrupted Chains does land, but look at how much he's able to buy with this Gwen. Ultimate land.
แล้วคือแบบเนี่ยเกวนมันกด W ทันมันเลยไม่ตาย
No damage being able to be applied, and also
เนี่ยมันไม่มีใครยิงเกวนได้นะตัวแนวหลังอะ
Probably the most important
โหช็อตนี้แบกนะจูหลานช็อตนี้แบกครับช็อตนี้แบก
Grapes, I'm looking at this next fight.
โหแล้วแชงแม่งแทง2 ทีตายไปเลย
I'm looking at this next fight. No flash on the jungler, no flash on Jackie Love, and no flash here for this Nico. It's going to be a very big win if Top Esports can continue to snowball this, but I mean, AL are still very firmly ahead of this game.
we're seeing semblances of why we were saying this TS competition is going to work out if they can get to an even game state. They have not been at that just yet, though, but Zweon's try to make that a different story. Public Execution, though, will land on the Flandre as he's trying to turn it around, but Zweon will have none of it. That is a solo kill for the Gwen, and now Shanks is actually out of position as well. This dragon should just belong to TES, but it will come at the cost of this life. He's going to dash forward. Finally, Shanks will take him down, but meanwhile, Jackie Love got chunked down to half HP, meaning that the river control is not claimed by either side.
คือมันต้องเป็นโยเนที่เงินเท่าอาเซียดิมันถึงจะแบบสู้อาเซียสบายนะครับบอกว่ามันแค่โดดใส่อะแต่อันนี้เงินมันตามเยอะเกินในไฟเล่นฟรีนะเกมเนี้ยมันไม่มีใครแบบโดดเข้าหาอาเซียได้
They're gonna trade for Baron. I hate this trade. Baron, I mean, cool. You'll take 750 gold. I love this response from AL. The
AL
soul
don't care about the soul. They know they can just get to it later. They want to try to end the fight right here.
โดนแล้วฝั่งนู้น
Chunked down to nearly
แปลกครับ
as Shanks now has to pop the Zanya's hourglass. It will be the Baron secured, fate sealed out for Cream, and Top Esports now to try to cancel channel. Try to get out of this fight. Shanks ends up taking a big burst of damage. Flandre goes down, and now it will be an instant death onto the hands of Fury. Shanks ends up getting the kill. It's a 1-2 kill.
แต่ได้บาลอนนะก็ยื้อเกมไป
legend, but Top Esports gets the Baron and keep the game alive.
วาร์ปอยู่แล้วโดนกระสุนปริศนาเฉยงงครับ
500 gold grapes, but what else are you supposed to do?
ฝึกยูบอกงงครับเอ้าเหมือนกูตายวะ
pushing into your turrets or pushing onto your side of the map. AL now, they know Tien's dead for 20 seconds. Shanks won't be able to TP in, so in the time it takes for him to walk from base to here is going to be the time in which Top Esports have any kind of position to move in.
Yeah.
This is still just the soul. Like, the Baron means nothing.
They send in the teleports to make sure that this goes down. Zweon thought about maybe going for a little bit of a cheeky play, but it will be the
Oh my god.
Picked up for anyone's legend. Have not done too much with this Baron power play just yet. Top Esports, they tried for a play. They were successful in one aspect, but they were very unsuccessful in the others.
And sure, they bit into the gold lead. It was a 7,000 gold lead here for AL. Baron's gonna give you 750, and that's kind of it. They got a kill beforehand with Zweon solo killing Flandre, but Soul is gonna give you about 4,000 gold, if I remember what the kind of approximate gold value was. So imagine that AL are currently up 10k. That's the boundary typically from a casting perspective, where you just say the game's quite over and we should be expecting them to win. Now for AL, it's can you close out in the next 4 minutes? Is the Baron going to be enough for Top Esports to be able to give them the time here in this game?
It would take a miraculous fight for TES to
มันแรงมากเลยนะตอนนี้โซไฟอาเซีย
We've seen this team against
วารัตประเด็นวารัตอาเซียโซไฟคนลุกแค่คิดก็สยองกันนะ
Miracles might not even be enough here. Zweon
เกมนี้มันควรจะแพ้ไปแล้วตอนนี้30นาทีดึงมานานเกินวะเนี่ย
Despite having the Baron buff against them,
โอ้โหแต่จุฬามันของมันพร้อมแล้วนี่ว่า3ชิ้นเพราะจุฬาไม่เล่นนาชอจุฬาเล่นแบบบิวถึกๆนิดนึงมึงเห็นทีมเกือบตายแฝงหลังครับตรงนี้โดนปิดแล้วโอ้โหยกมาก่อนฟังเดย์ยังไหวอยู่แล้วจุฬามาหลังตรงนี้โอ้โหอาเซียฟ้าจบดับบิวทำไมโอ้โหจุฬาตายไปเลยบนเทียนซีชีพหายแล้วตรงนี้เทียนเนี่ยออกได้ยังไงอุ้ยโอ้โหโดนลากไปก่อนทีมกูเรียบร้อยแพ้อันนี้
As Shanks says, not today. He dashes forward on the front line. Looks to finish the job. It's a double kill for the third man.
เขาลั่นเกินแล้วมันเป็นโซไฟอ่ะถ้าไม่ใช่โซไฟอาจจะได้ลุ้นอยู่เยอะ
Top Esports, Shanks' name is Emperor. You will call him your king as AL move in to get a 2-0 victory over the 6-2 Top Esports. Momentum is on the Panda side as we kick off Pandemonium Weekend. Anyone's Legends in 31.5 minutes going to dominate Top Esports and take a series sweep in the second half of the round robin. That is the easiest Shanks MVP I have ever seen in my entire life. Clearly the better mid laner here in this game. He got taken advantage of in the Annie versus Rise matchup in that game 1, but it did not matter. We saw excellence here from AL. We saw shaky decision making from Top Esports, and it kind of paid off for the Pandas. It is true Pandissimo going on through for week number 5.
And this is the AL that we know and love, that we saw dominate the entirety of 2025. You could say start to finish, the most complete team of this past calendar year. It has not looked the same. Going into 2026, we wondered if Tabe was the answer, but AL want to prove that that is not the case, as they, I believe, are up now to 6-3 in the standings and will tie top esports in that regard. TES still have the game score advantage because of all the 2-0s that they have generated here this season. But AL feeling very confident about where they are. They have another matchup tomorrow in CN while they're already feeling at the top of their Invictus game that really has been struggling. So a lot to look forward to if you are AL looking towards the back half of this season.
Man, that is an insane one. And remember, we keep talking about it. I think I'm going to keep hammering away at this.
Being Forest.
Actually, a 3-0 weekend is incredible for your standings. You boost yourself to be able to go very far up in the standings, and again, you're looking at potentially pole position, at being able to potentially challenge PLG for first place. I think that's an incredible bounce back after taking a look at their first round robin. They went, what, 3-5 or 3-4. It's like barely a 50.
เดี๋ยวลงก่อนนะชัดเดี๋ยวว่ากันถ้าขึ้นทัน
You're
เนี่ย
always
เดี๋ยว
gonna
ขึ้น
take a free win versus WE this split. Let's just, you know, that's just how it goes.
เดี๋ยวผมขออนุญาตลงไปนี่กัน
For AL, the rest of their
ลงไปนั่ง
schedule, they
เซต
played
ไลน์แป๊บนึง
teams that started off Hop and now are struggling next.
ไปละ
IG and then NIP. They have WE next